All right, we certainly want to welcome everybody to the October 5th meeting of the Tennessee Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors. Notice of the October 5th, 2016 meeting of the Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors was posted to the Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors website on September 8th, 2016. Certainly want to, first off, I want to thank all the members of the staff who've, I know, worked hard and diligently to pull this meeting together. I know it's not the normally on schedule meeting, and so it kind of interrupted their schedules with all their other boards that they deal with, but they certainly have pulled it together great, and I just want to express a thank you to you up front for all your work and your efforts. I know there's a lot that goes into it that we don't even know about, so thank you.
Very welcome. Our pleasure.
All right, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. First item is to adopt the agenda. I trust that the members have had an opportunity to look at the agenda. If there's anything that we need to add or revise or delete to the agenda, now's the time to speak up. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion for adoption of the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion and a second. Anything further? Hearing none, just by voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is adopted as submitted. All right, we'll jump right into the director's report. Ms. Roxanna, if you would go ahead and give us an update on the newsletter, then we'll jump into the software update.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaufman. I appreciate that. Because this is, like you said, a special meeting, we're not going to get into the financial side, anything special on our director's report. I'm going to turn it over in a second to Cody, and he'll fill you in on the newsletter. I want to take a moment to introduce and welcome our newest member, Ms. Betsy Summerford. So she's starting with our board as of this meeting, and this is a great opportunity for her to kind of get the gist of a little bit of everything before we have our standard typical meeting. So we are happy to be able to be here. Everyone is present. Cody, you go right ahead, and let's get some information on the newsletter.
I know you guys were wondering at our last meeting when we were going to get the new one out. We got some good news. We got the green light from our communication side. The problem now for me is that I have to, it's been so long, I have to rewrite some of the parts that mention that it was spring when we were going to put it out. So that's my fault. I tried to personalize it a little bit to make it quarterly. Was the idea, but now that we've talked with Kevin, our communications head, we should get on track with this one. I will send that revised. We're not going to change any of the content, but I'm going to send you what I've got in advance, either through our new thing or email it to you, just for you guys to review it before we send it out. I'll also have Laura double check the content to make sure that nothing has changed, and then we'll get it out hopefully within the next month, a couple weeks.
Cody, have we now kind of crossed the bridge?
Yeah, I think so. I think I think we're on track from here.
A little more smooth continuality.
Right.
When we started this back in '09, when I first came on the board, we were shooting for 2 newsletters a year. I don't have any problem if we only turn out 1, but 2's nice. But I just wanted to make sure that we're finally, because we're getting in the year plus range since we had the last one out.
Correct. And it was Nicole's intention to bump it up to quarterly, depending on submissions and relying on content from. Do that great if we can get 2 out before the end of the year. That'll be great. I will try to do that, but certainly we'll have this one for 2016, and then one probably early.
I just want to make a point that that not only your efforts but your predecessors' efforts on the newsletter is very much appreciated. There are a lot of people who just in casual conversation are asking me, what's going on with the board and things like that, and a lot of their information comes from the newsletter. They'll go on the website, get the newsletter information. So I
think you're absolutely right.
Encourage you to as best you can get those out, and because it is valuable information that we need to get out there.
Especially with the changes to our continuing education reporting now at the end of the year, people are starting to wonder, what exactly am I supposed to do?
It's a great avenue for the staff and the department to put out information to our professionals that don't attend our board meetings, don't watch our videos, and don't really have any other means of getting it. And that's a great way to put it in their hands. really is.
We're going to make sure, I don't know if in this one, because I don't want to, Cody's been pulled at different angles as well, so I don't want to delay him putting it out, and I know that the industry's ready for it. So maybe the next one we do, we want to make sure and include a lot of information about the online process, just to help licensees view their own license, if the filing of the complaint has changed, all those things. So we'll probably do some snippets and have screenshots so that they're aware. The meeting I was able to attend with Kimberly a few weeks ago was pretty much about that, and they seemed really appreciative of knowing that we're using technology differently and that they can expedite processes, tell their future employees, this is how you're going to renew your license, all those things. So we'll make sure to add that as well. That newsletter then will have a different type of feel. It won't be as much about the profession, but I think you're right. It gives us a chance to communicate in general and really help use some of these tools that, we've paid for to have and are going to help them expedite things.
And on this forum here, I want to thank you and Kimberly for going to the TAPS Board of Directors and making that presentation.
You are welcome.
I've heard nothing but positives
Very
from
positive.
everybody that I've
Very
spoken to at
positive.
the meeting.
It was really wonderful. I mean, it really was. It was a great opportunity. We were thrilled they let us come in early and kind of get that done, but it was very good. I had a chance to see Mr. Northcutt there, but and Kimberly's wonderful. So anything that was missed, their questions were great. They were about the exams, but they also had general questions, a little bit about everything that we do in commerce and insurance. So it was good. We were thrilled to have gone.
In the past, we have made several board presentations to the TAPS at their annual conference as a board. And, they usually ask us to do those things, and we certainly would like to continue those things because there's so many of the membership that just does not get the information any other way. It's a good opportunity for them.
It is. Communication to me is vital. I mean, that's the only way we can really make progress and keep everybody in the loop. So you can always count me in to be able to go and look forward to doing those presentations.
Write that down, write that down.
I will say
Put that in the minutes.
too, Roxana, that at the Board of Directors meeting, your presentation was more than well received, but knowing what's coming up with the changes and renewal, and et cetera, even though I haven't talked to Mr. Cleveland or the new president, I'm sure that they would like to have another presentation to March. But I'm just saying, keep that in mind. That's a real possibility to bring those folks up to speed and they understand how to use the website and everything else that's going with it, because that's a big change that they don't know about.
Absolutely.
Trust me.
Absolutely. No, I've got it down. March it is, and it does. It really affects everyone in the public, so we will definitely do that. Yes. Yes.
Cody, anything further on the newsletter?
That's all I had. Hopefully get that to you here within the next week or two. Yeah.
Thank you, Cody, appreciate that. Okay, next on our list here after the newsletter, we've got a demonstration of an SFTP file server. I'm going to need a little explanation there, a little acronym deciphering.
Sounds like somebody
Wow.
getting ready to go in a capsule and
I'm
out
not
of
sure where
space.
we're going with this.
And Cody is going to drive us, and he is
Right.
going to show you the application. So I want to give you a little bit of history of why we're doing this, conversations we've had, kind of make sure that we're all on the same page. As we are looking to do some things more efficiently, if you will, to take advantage of your time so that your time at the board meeting, your time in general is gives you a chance to look at things to come, concerns, things you want to discuss. The applications is one of those things that came to Brian's mind, the assistant commissioner as well as mine, and we talked with Cody about how lengthy they are, and that you three are the ones that can really view and catch problems and go back and forth. And so we discussed with the Architects and Engineers Board kind of how they've been moving things. They don't review their applications during a meeting. So Brian said, go run with this and see where that takes you. And so since I wasn't able to make the July meeting, shortly after I started working with John Cothran and looking at their process and the person that put it together for them. And they've been doing it, Cody, I think for a year and a half. I mean, it's been a while. So they no longer look at applications except the problem ones. So the thought is, if you've got two individuals looking at these applications, it's going to take them the same amount of time to look at them in advance, kind of at their convenience, or during board time, but it frees up board time to do other productive things. They've had no issue with it, but again, we're going to adjust so that it works for you all. That's the goal. So they've worked out some of the kinks. So the good thing is we don't have, the problems with the server and little things that come up. So we've got some processes in place to want to be able to train you through and walk you through. But the thought is these applications are too big to email. And then, of course, there's a lot of private information you don't want out there. So email won't work. This is a server that's secure on our side. And so what our technology person did earlier today, Paul Mighty, is install this link so that you have the program to access the server. And you're tapping into our wall, if you will, where the applications have been saved and scanned in by Cody. So he saves them. Remember, he's that first point of contact when they have questions, when they're sending everything. So by the time he's saved your document there, it should be identical to what you're seeing in the paper world. So we're going to review these. The good thing about this meeting is they're the folks that didn't meet a requirement. So it's not the full lengthy process that you normally would look at. But taking into account that by October 27th, you may have a few full applications. They live on that site. Cody would let you know that, you've been assigned 1 or 2 or 3 applications, and that way we're sure that 2 people have an application to look at. The thought is if they meet everything and you've approved it, then Cody knows that that application's approved by one of you, and then if the second person approves it, there's no conversation at the meeting. If both of you deny it, the application hasn't met the minimum requirements, it's denied. If we have a disagreement, one person approves it and thinks it's all good, but the other one says, no, this plan was not good, this is what it's missing, then we present it at the following meeting. That's kind of how they deal with their applications. So with that in thought, we'll walk you through questions. This is a good time to, if you have concerns and maybe Cody and I don't have the answers, we can go back with plenty of time to John and his team that have been doing it for so long and say, how did you work this out? What is going on. The way he explained it is what they do is then each member knows that the applications are there, knows which ones they have to look at, and it's 1 or 3 or 4 or how many. They get to pick and choose, okay, at this time is a good time for me to look at these versus, Fridays are not good, I'm busy, and you get to adjust your calendar the way you see fit. So I'm going to let Cody walk you through it, interrupt him with questions or jot them down however you feel comfortable with doing them. But that's basically the concept. It's a secure server, so when you're opening that application, it can't be hacked in and you're looking through everything on your laptop. I think we've been told that's the best way to go with the laptop, right? So that's what we're working with today as opposed to iPads and just because of the volume of the documents, the size.
May I ask a question?
Oh, yeah.
A preliminary question?
Absolutely.
The thing that you said that concerns me is that randomly or arbitrarily or by some method, only 2 members would be selected to review that application. I have a concern about that.
Right now, do all 3 of you look at all of them?
Well, I'm going to say yes and no. And the reason I'm going to say that is, obviously you were not at our July meeting, and that's not your
Right.
fault. But what we tend to find is, and I'll let the others speak for themselves, but we tend to find that if we have a problem or a flag on an application, in one surveyor's review of that application, then we pass it and tend to discuss it between us to determine whether or not the one is looking at it maybe incorrectly, or there's something else that's there that might have been missed, or something of that nature. So that's my only initial concern, and I want to hear how it's presented and so forth. But
Absolutely.
But this randomness of selecting 2 people, I have a little concerned about that.
So I guess what I envision, let's say we have 5 applications. If they are sorted and Mr. Lingerfeld has 2 to do, you've got 3 and so forth. Everyone's got certain ones to do, and the thought is they'll move to the second person. I think the communications with Cody on those, if he knows that there's a concern, you'd communicate with him and say, tentatively, Mr. John Doe, I'm not fully comfortable. Here's my concern, and it's on the plat, it's on page the experience, whatever it is, the credit hours on this particular. Here's my concern. Cody then knows that something's pending on it. When the second person has no problem, then he can view and go, Mr. Kaufman, did you pay attention to these hours? Are these reviewed? But if it is a problem, those are the ones we will bring back. So if the issue is out of 5, 4 keep coming back, I think then we'll have to readdress it, because at that point you're looking at them at the meeting anyway. Now, the question would be, have we saved some time, and when you're looking at them, you're only looking at those discrepancies? Is that then still make it worthwhile grabbing them ahead of time?
Well, I think that it's prudent on our part to be able to assist you all in kind of what I'm going to call a checklist of things that are clearly well within your all's purview. Now, and that's not disrespectful in any
No,
way.
no, we're not the
But
experts.
what I'm saying is probably there's probably four major areas that we have issue. One would be experience and the level and quality of that experience as defined by statute. Two would be education. Education is very problematic, specifically when it's obtained at an out-of-state university. We have to review courses and things of that nature to make sure that it is within the purview of what we look at. Three would be the plats, because we certainly don't feel that you want to train your staff to review the plat to what our standards are,
Not at all.
And then four is the references, because just to give you a good example, all the paperwork may be very well in order, but of the references that the individual that's on the application receives, that individual may receive 2 or 3 references that says this individual is not ready to take the examination. So we have to look at all that. So in my mind, those 4 areas are areas that would be a little troublesome for you all, yet you all can certainly be helpful to us to ensure that we have X number of references. They are signed and sealed the way they're supposed to be. We have transcripts for educational courses that they're submitting for. The experience portion is filled out properly with the employer verification forms. And these are the kind of things that in the your all's behind the scene process that you can make sure that we've got all the items from A to Z, but there may be 3 or 4 of these items that you're not able to actually dive into and clearly say. Now, I'm obviously talking about someone that's at the PSTS level, but you're not able to dive in to clarify those as well as a board member would.
Oh, no, absolutely.
So, I mean, that's my only concern about that.
Right.
Jump in real quick. I think Tim jumped on those 4 items that really are the key elements to any application that we're reviewing. Much like typically we'll sit up here as a board and oftentimes, hey, Tim, I've got a question on, it might be experience or it might be on the education record or oftentimes, more than often, it's the plats that we're looking at. And to physically hold the plat in your hand is something for a surveyor that really no one else can understand. I mean, you can scan it and you can put it on a PDF and you can play but it's not the same as physically holding it in your hand. To a surveyor, that is paramount. It really is. And that's really where I have a little bit of concern about the electronic review in these. It's one thing to look at transcripts, on a PDF file. It's one thing to look at the references on a PDF file. Those things we probably can work with. It's the getting down to the plats where I have some real concern about the review process going. But I don't think it's something that we can't work around. I think we can find a happy medium here. But I'm very open to seeing a demonstration of how this is going to work. Expectations on both our sides. There's some concern about the randomness of the applications. I'm a little. I guess lack of understanding on how exactly the process is going to work right there and how that would affect the applicant. That's my concern, is does that have any bearing on the applicant itself? Not that it's not random when they get stacked up here. It's very similar. It's very similar.
What I could say on the heels of what Jay has said, on the FS side, the initial, and we're going to talk about that when we get in the exam process, I see this system
Absolutely.
on the FS side as being a bonus,
Yes.
a clear
Without a
bonus
doubt.
to everybody,
Without a
win-win
doubt.
all the way across.
Right.
It's just as we move along, it becomes a little bit more challenging.
No, and I get that 100%. The thought is many professions for that beginning, whatever we call it, a permit, your FS, your temporary license, whatever, each board has different ways to address it. They just quickly, do they meet the requirements, and we put them through to take that first exam, get them out there working. That's part of our responsibility. And so I agree with you. This would really expedite that. Then we look at for, bless you, for the actual PST person, that next level, are the plats too complex to deal at this level? Is just that piece then dealt at the meeting? Those are all things really worth considering.
And the large gorilla in the room about our final portion of our testing
Yes.
versus architects and engineers is theirs is a national examination. Ours is a state-specific examination.
right.
So, we're actually writing the exam or having the exam written for us, whereas it's written for them, and no matter what jurisdiction you're at in the United States, they're taking the same thing. They're doing something different in Tennessee. So that's part of that problem too.
Right. And we won't resolve that in 2 quick meetings.
Right.
But as we look at everything, and as in Indianapolis, you propose, let's think outside the box. I think all those things come together. So this is one of those tools, and we're going to use it the best way that works for you 3. Takes into account the licensee. If we can get them out there and test and much faster and get that permit and start their experience, I think we've done them a huge service. We're not holding them back for the meeting when you think of it that way. So, Cody, I think it's all yours. Might interrupt you here or there.
I'm not an expert on this new process by any means. We did have a pretty productive meeting with the engineer. As was noted, there are some differences. The department is headed full steam ahead towards online applications. So we're going to start seeing those at some point. The day red folder are probably numbered for us because even the paper applications that we are receiving, I don't get those. The policy of the department now is to scan in mail and attach it to the new online licensing system. And that's caused a big problem with the plats. As it stands now, our instructions are you put the plats in with your initial application. They go to the people in the mailroom. The people in the mailroom never seen anything like that. They don't know how to scan it, and so they don't. I think I've got them trained to get them up here, but it's been a painful process. It's just going to take some adjusting on both sides because
Part of the problem on the scanning, the fact that they don't have a large scanner, because a lot of the plats are very large.
right. Yeah, that's what it comes down to is that they don't know how to properly scan the plat and they don't fool with it. So I have to go down and dig for it.
But I think you all will appreciate actually that, right? Because then we know Cody's responsible for those priceless plats. Because the scanner that they have is actually desktop. Yeah, there's no way. So, yeah, he's got them.
So increasingly upstairs we're going paperless, and we need to be mindful of that as we what our future is going to look like. So that's part of why Roxana and John met and had this conversation about creating a method to review the applications in advance. Paul Mighty's creating our IS guy is creating a login for you to be connected to an online server. Have a link on your desktop. It'll look a lot like this one. You'll double click it. It will connect you. You will be prompted to log in. We'll provide you with that information. And essentially, the way that the engineers do it, John Cothran is their IT guy. He has their login. He has their password. He handles it all himself. So if you guys have any problem, you just pick up the line. And I guess that's what I will be doing, keeping track of all you guys. I can log in for you. I can diagnose any problems. I can keep track of your updates and passwords and things like that. But anyway, once you've had your login created, you will be welcome to your own personal online folder where files like the ones we've been reviewing for the past couple of meetings will be available. And we actually have 6 to look at. These are things that are from the last meeting. Specifically, these are candidates who I think all of them had issues with their plats that needed to be corrected because we are doing the state-specific registration ourselves. And I've spoken with Peter Messier about it, and with the candidates, we feel that if you guys will take a look at those, and if they are, if you're willing to approve them, then we can get them sat for the exam at the end of October. Does that make sense?
I'm assuming we physically have the plats with us.
Yeah, yeah. Some of them are paper, some of them are on the screen. So now we'll kind of transition into the application review, and we'll see how.
May I address a plat issue just a
Sure.
second, Cody?
Yeah.
Do you think it would be appropriate, our current statute requires the plats, but it is not specific as far as size of plat and some parameters similar to that.
Right.
I just wonder out loud if it would be of an assistance in this process if the board crafted some language that could be included in the application for, just pull something out of there. For example, to say no plat shall be larger than 18 by 24, or it shall be 18 by 24. The legal description shall be on separate paper. Because a lot of times what we see is we'll see a 24 by 36 or a 30 by 42 that may be an Alta NSPS survey that has the legal description on it, has everything on one piece of paper, but it's like a bed sheet. So what I'm wondering is if it just as a thought, if we streamline that a little bit so that what we got was basically down to, at this point in time, one piece of paper that would be the only piece of paper that we would need. Well, actually be two pieces of paper because two plats, but two pieces of paper where everything else would be a normal letter legal size that would be scanned in the process, and we would, at this point, at least limit it down to that. But that's just a thought.
And I think that's so let me ask you, and here's where my ignorance on the profession is going to come through. What type of hardship is it for that candidate to say, let's say we need the plat to be no more than 18 by 10. I mean, is there a place they can go? If we give them the dimensions and the specifics, what does that do to them? Because we can, we will look at how, and then they have to submit it that way. It'll make Cody's world a lot easier, and then you all will be consistently looking at the same thing.
Well, I can give you another example. I probably went a little bit big, but for clarity purposes, and in your all's process, if we went to and I don't know what Jane Gay will think this, but if we went to 11 by 17, then it's scannable with 8.5 by 11 and 8.5 by 14. Mm-hmm. So if we went to 11 by 17, we may need to specify font size, some other things so that it doesn't come in. What we don't want is we don't want someone that did a Alta NSPS survey on a 30 by 42 piece of paper and they reduce it down to 11 by 17 and then still legible. That's why I'm saying we may need to mention some font sizes and some things of that nature, so it's that everything that we're looking for standards-wise on that document, we're able to legibly read, and it would be a document that would be very easily reproduced when, for example, if we were reviewing all these applications online or at either our little pad that we usually have that we don't today, or our laptop or whatever, then if we needed something printed, it would be very easy for Cody to print 11 by 17, because most any copier in your building would probably do that. And we could actually have that in our hand. He could bring it with him or whatever. I'm just looking at a way to try to accommodate the system that the department has set forth, yet still accomplish the goal that we need to accomplish about having the ability to review and approve so that we can move this person on through the process.
I think that's huge. I think it's huge. So the next question would be, if we put the limit out there, 11 by 17, we set the font size at 10, we sent, whatever specifics we want, Laurel guide us on what we can and can't do, and I don't think that's out of the norm of what we ask most professions to do. If that will give you a plat that has the specifics you want, they'd have to narrow down on the plat. Am I right? It can't be maybe what they would have submitted on the bed sheet?
Right. Well,
Okay.
For example,
Yeah.
the legal description
Yeah.
is one thing. That usually the larger piece of paper,
Yeah.
that's when the legal description
Is
shows
included.
up on that piece of paper.
And they can do that separately,
They can
right?
do that separately.
Okay, that's okay. So I
And
am
that was
kind
really
of
kind of
pushing
the, when that statute was written, that
Mm-hmm.
was really the intent, was for the description to be a separate document.
I think that's great, and if the board is inclined to pick that 11 by 17 size, that I think doesn't, it's actually, if most Kinko's, whatever offices are still around that do the photocopying, Staples, Office Depots, if that size they would be able to reduce it or work with them, or are we talking about asking would they have to go to a special office to have it redone that size?
No, basically, we all work in what we call an AutoCAD world.
Okay.
And you can make
You have
your
your-
drawing any size that you want.
Perfect.
It may not be the
Perfect.
standard size, it may not be the standard size that you normally would produce from your office for your client.
Right.
But, a examinee is going to produce a document that assists them in getting approved so they can take the examination. So I don't necessarily see that as a hardship. Jay, you can go to see that problem?
Go ahead, Galen.
No, I'm in agreement with Tim on that. I just think that sometimes when an applicant draws a plat and he has a large document, problem with shrinking it down and trying to get everything on there, you get so much junk on there that is superfluous, other than the fact of the things of what we're looking for. And so if we go to 11 by 17, in most cases, I would think we'd be able to find everything that we're looking for on that size of a document. I'm not going to say that's all. I'll tell you that some of the documents come in and so much information, putting it on
Clearly, if it's a survey that has 30 sides to it or something, and it's got 3 roads and a bunch of easements through it. If it's a plat that's very busy, you go to that size. It's a problem. But our statute basically said 5-sided. I think again, I think that's a situation to where if we consider this, we need to develop some parameters. And obviously, we're probably not going to do that today, but if we can get pointed in that direction, it may assist soon.
Absolutely, absolutely. And from what you're saying, it's not a huge imposition. I think we look at it in great detail, figure out who, what else do you need Laura and I to do? What else do you want to do? But yeah, and the exceptions would be, like you're saying, that when there's easements, the roads, all that. So we don't want to create this for the exception, because we'll obviously need to treat those exceptions a little bit differently. They'll present us what they can, and then we deal with it. But if the vast majority can comply with an 11 by 17, font size 10, everything that is not about the plat must be on a separate document. It can scan in by our cashier's office. It can be treated as the supporting documents to the plat. Yeah.
One thing I do want to touch base on, I'm not in disagreement with any of the discussion that you're saying about the 11 by 17, but I want to make sure that we're not creating a hardship on the applicant, which I think is paramount. So I don't want to make it a mandatory 11 by 17. And the other option, the other thing I'm thinking in my mind is, some surveyors are quote unquote still old fashioned in that they like to keep a hard copy in a flat file somewhere in the office with the official stamp and colored signature and all that stuff, and that the electronic file is just for reference. It's not the official document. In which case, if they only have, 18 by 24s or larger, that's the official one that they want to submit, that they're not limited to not be able to submit the full-size document. I think it's important that we stress that we would prefer the 11 by 17,
Okay.
but that we don't make it mandatory.
All right. Why don't we look at this? Why don't we make the document, in the same spirit of where you're going, Jay, make the document in multiples of 8.5 by 11? For example, to go back in the spirit you're talking about, if it was 22 by 34, that's double 11 by 17. Sure. So that is still in a scannable environment. You see where I'm coming from?
Oh, yeah. Well, again, we're kind of going off topic here a little bit,
Yeah.
and not to where we need to be with Cody here for a
Okay.
second. But again, I just want to stress the point that I don't want to make it more of a hardship on the applicant. But at the same time, I want to be able to benefit staff in the electronic world that we're coming into, and get to the point that we can get where we need to be.
You have a
But
good point.
I agree. I think standards, whether they are preferences or not, will be super helpful. Number one, to make sure that these guys get it right the first time. Number two, to benefit the administration and the direction we're headed in with the online applications and all that. It'll be so. If you guys are ready, we will open up our first file. Now, when you open this on your desktop, you will need.
Can I just ask a quick question up front?
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off because I know you're just getting started. Is what we're seeing on the screen an example of what we might see
Yes.
on the? Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Identical.
That's what I
This
was
is
just.
what it
He's
will-
logged
Exactly
in
what
as if, yes. So
Okay.
you,
Yeah, it's
this is.
very simple.
Yeah.
You've seen it before.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
just opens a window, and you will select the file that you want to review, and you will drag it to your desktop. Yeah, you will not be able to review the file from within the file server because it's encrypted.
We're given the key, and we will send you any other short literature. It's not 10 steps to do it, but one of the key things is you do have to drag it. If you double click the file because it's encrypted, it opens gibberish. So it's kind of a drag and drop.
Watch the news recently. You know how important it is to encrypt your documents. So this is a guy from out of state, from Wisconsin. He applied. He submitted plats and legal descriptions unrevised for Tennessee with a supplementary document that explained what he would revise for Tennessee. But you guys felt that you needed to see his revisions. So he was initially denied on the grounds that the legal descriptions and plats needed to be truly prepared to our standards. He has done so. So we'll go to the, you've reviewed everything else. We'll go to the back and find his new plats and revisions.
And they couldn't be scanned, right?
There's the key, see? I think it's brilliant.
Here we go, bed sheet.
Oh, I'll give
Give
him
us a little light up here, Cody.
with the world of plats.
Okay.
Cody, if I could, just for the record and clarify with Roxana, this is official review of an applicant right here.
Right.
that we're
This
on.
is
Yes,
it.
we
I just
Oh,
want to
yeah.
make sure that those that are watching
Yes.
understand
We
on
moved
record.
into
we
the
are
application review portion of our meeting.
The good thing about this date that we came up with, it'll get these folks in for the October date if we
That's the
still
goal.
can.
What we want,
That's our
yeah.
goal.
We wanna get
Because
them in
we
there.
have the freedom
Yes.
to do that, we want
Are,
to.
is this applicant just TS specific?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, are all these applicants just TS specific?
They're all waiting on the TS.
That's your basic north there. Put his legal description.
We have 6 applicants, one of which would need to take the PS.
The reason I asked that question, Cody, is primarily because, let's assume we approve this application, then you're getting this individual in for the end of the month's TS
Yeah.
exam with Mr. Bezier. But you'll also have to notify this individual that they'll still have to register with NCWS in order to be able to take the
That's correct.
PS.
For the individual that would need to take the PS, that's a separate process that we would inform.
They could actually take and pass the PS before they're notified of their TS results.
Correct.
statement on here that I certify that this survey was done in compliance.
Basically a 24x36 guy.
I try to keep the plat physically smaller the better. Reference is 1824. If that doesn't work, then I
Alta's
jump up.
always 24x36 virtually,
Yeah.
because of legals and some search and all
stuff.
that.
We were talking about sending a legal
Right,
description, and this legal description gives
That's a different plan down there, I guess.
It is.
One question that we had at that time, I'm fine with it.
Get to sign off on them?
I've got a note already as to how your notes will transfer in this electronic world. Where will you add your notes? So we kind of know. So that's one of my lists already.
That part of the review that we're going to be learning here is if we, whether we approve or deny the application, is there an electronic way of doing that?
Yes,
Okay.
they're supposed to be, yes.
Okay, so the handwritten signature that we're so accustomed to will be
You're electronic.
handled another way?
Yeah, it'll be an electronic, yes, I've accepted this.
And then
pass it
if,
along.
and then I assume that there is an area for if we have, if we
Turns
deny
or
the
deny.
application, there's an area for us to type in and.
Right,
If,
right.
if there's a question and you don't know whether you're going to approve or deny, you just want to have somebody else take a look at it, you can make that note.
and so we're looking to see if, has he
Must, shall, will, can.
Yeah, okay.
I just hate to do that.
they were required to submit two plans.
Okay.
And when they submit. Where's your,
Cody ain't gonna let you see that one. The secret, you can't see that.
Education over here.
Well, you got the best teacher.
Sounds like it.
yeah, buddy. Okay, here again, we look to see what's on this, but where's our author? Mortgage and title companies, they want
we're gonna be good with both of those, Cody.
This looks like that is going to go. Cody, you did a really good.
I think you've got your hands full trying to get those scanned in.
Include the names of the adjoining property owners and a reference to any adjoining plat of record.
Technical stuff.
It don't. That's why I think that we should embellish that.
They come out of a plotter.
They come out of the same piece of equipment.
Okay. Work in Tennessee. Does
It'll
he
be
have a
very
bid in
similar
or
to the one we
something?
already use.
Okay,
With
okay.
a place for comments
Yeah.
and.
And
rules
Wanda
stuff.
may have that one already, you know, just in case we can tweak the two worlds. We'll just, that works perfect, Cody.
Cody, if I could just take a step back, I think we're all in agreeing that the plats were approved. Do we need to, I think I asked you once, do we need to physically sign those, or?
Well, we've got the form from last time.
Okay,
It's not necessary.
okay, all right. Just want to make sure that we get that through, no hiccups on the applicant there.
Yeah.
We have one done.
I think
Is
so.
that right?
I think we're one done.
Okay. Yeah.
Applause.
And we're making notes of questions. Cody's got the form that he's going to make available, so it'll be on with each of the documents. So right there electronically, you'll type in your name, initials, and so forth. We'll figure that out.
The next candidate is Tyrone LaRue. He was originally, plats were denied because they had not been signed by the surveyor. They did not reference the boundary points along the road as iron rods or whatever, but just as points. So here's the, I can zoom in or.
All right, so the first issue, Cody, was the signature, is that right?
The signature of the
Obviously,
surveyor.
we've covered that. And
hidden.
the other issue was monumentation of the
Correct.
corners to the property.
Monumentation issues.
Okay.
And he's changed the symbol on here, Jay, to go with the notation of iron.
Matches with the legend? Okay.
Before, he had calculated a unmarked point.
I remember that, yeah.
That's what he had before, because I reviewed this.
Yep. Okay, so it sounds like of the two issues that were the reason for the denial before, the applicant, it looks to me, Tim, you agree that he's covered both those issues here?
Yes, and, you know, another issue that we have about our plats are supposed to stipulate that the applicant did the work under the supervision of this surveyor.
Right.
It doesn't say that, you know, but it really should. It really should. Again, that goes back into some of our little things that, and Jay's right about that, but what we was talking about earlier, we don't want to there's a few little minor things that should appear on all. The other one there, Cody. Whether he did or not.
He labeled the monuments on it?
Yes.
Okay.
So Cody, on this visual, we can actually expand it to 200 or 400%, can't we?
Right.
So that-
It fits your screen, but it can be magnified.
Yeah, that is your plus to the plat being there, that if you need that specific corner or what was there, you actually can amplify
But
that
As
sign.
Jay so aptly said earlier, typically what you would find is we would take and print this at our office. So we had that piece of paper in our hand. You would be surprised the difference of the years of drawing plats, of looking at it on the screen versus actually running the old-timey blueprint, or now it's all black and white, of printing it, the difference of what you see and don't see with it actually physically in front of you. You can look at it for hours on the computer screen and not see something. You run a print, the very first print you run to check it, and you see a half a dozen things. Just jumps out and grabs you.
Do you have the capability to, sorry, because I completely understand that. I have to print all my documents to edit them or I miss really embarrassing typos. But do you have the capability to print something, like, because you are a land surveyor, do you have the ability where you could print up someone else's survey in the size that you need?
If we get it in PDF format, I certainly can.
That's what these are, yeah.
Would that,
Well, not all of them do, because I can print up to an 11 by 17. I do not have a large scale plotter. These guys do have that in their office, but I do not.
I can print 36 wide by 150 yards.
And I would hate to see us inconveniencing you all by having to print a plat to see at home. At that point, I'd rather you view it at the meeting if that's what we'd have to go with, because that, I mean, that has a cost implication. I can just kind of see that. And I get the having to print. I had to walk 17 judges away from paper to the technology world. That was not fun. So I get it, because they had to have those motions in hand. They eventually let go of the paper, which was a sheer miracle. But so I do understand that. So if you need it in paper, I think we'll probably work more around the let's then look at the plat here. To me, from that other perspective, it's just I can blow it up on the computer and make it bigger. If that helps, then that's one of the things to technology. But if you need it in paper, we'll figure out how to get you to have the plats here. I think
The instructor I had in college was a land surveyor, and he basically referred to a plat as a picture. And he said, this is a picture and it's going to tell a story. And he said, if you look at only portions of the picture, you only get part of the story. So that's
we're blowing
where
it up.
I'm from old school, is I got to look at the whole picture to get all the story.
Right.
Because just for example, if you look at one area on there, you need to, well, a good example is the one on the screen. If you just look at the lot, that's all you're looking at, you've got abbreviations around that lot. Now you've got to move over to the abbreviation part to figure out what that is and then come back to the lot. So you end up panning all over the screen, and invariably you may or may not miss something. Whereas if I look at that entire picture, then all I got to do is just move my eyes or my head just a little bit and I see everything I need to see. That's kind of the difference. It really is.
I get it.
I would enter one more thing. I know that we asked them to give us a survey, generally 5 sides or more. But, if they give us an Alta survey that may only have 4 sides or what have you, I hate for the applicant to run back out and say, oh, I've got to go out and do a 5-sided survey. Let me run it here real quick and run a traverse around something so I can get a plat for the application. I'd just assume that he submits something that he has done rather than have to go and do something special just for me.
Well, Galen, if I may, the 5-sided thing has kind of been a board understanding,
Reference?
not in our statute.
Okay. So we could not hold back an applicant
correct.
based
Could
on
not.
that. And that
And
is
we
the
don't.
key.
If they
Good,
send
good,
us
good,
a
good.
triangle-
Thank you.
If they send us a triangle or a circle, we'd have to, if it met
Thank
the
you.
standards, we'd have
I
to
got
prove
you.
it.
I got you. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
We just
That
like
sounds
to
right.
see it, does he know what to do? Instead of taking a rectangle and saying, oh, yeah, the length times the width, and that gives me the area. What do you do with 5 sides, or what do you do with a curved side, or what have you? Special survey just for the board's application.
Can't deny him based on that, so we have to just be careful of that. Yeah. All right, are we good? This one? I'm melting.
Okay, getting back on track here. I think we all looked at the second applicant. I think we were all in approval. They covered the two items that we've looked on. Cody, are we looking at the third applicant now?
This is the third applicant, James Bradley Maynor. He's a surveyor from Alabama who lacked the proper Tennessee certification.
Easy.
Okay.
Because it's been time.
All right, if I understood you, Cody, the reason for denial of the application originally was that the certification was incorrect?
Yeah.
Okay,
I have
and,
the
and are we looking
originals.
at the updated,
This
modified?
this is the revision.
This is the updated one, okay. Pull it open, Tim.
Ratio or precision of the unadjusted survey.
Cody, can we get that certification up there again for us, please? Yeah, there you go. And zoom
pull it
in.
up a little bit?
Yeah, zoom in for us. Eyes aren't what they used to
Yeah.
be. Okay, let's just take this item by item here.
Okay, our standards of practice say a certification on the face of the final survey map or plat, which that's there. As to the category of the survey, category 2 is stipulated.
All right, we got that.
And the ratio or precision of the unadjusted survey. Galen, the question I asked Jay was, do you consider positional accuracy the same as ratio of precision? My answer is no.
My understanding is that you're apples to oranges there, and that, see, what I'm looking for here is that the applicant's certification in this example references or follows the guidelines that we have in our standards. And so that's what I'm going through item by item here. We just talked about the certification. That's the first bullet point that they have to comply with. It's there. We're good. The second item, and it clearly says ratio precision of the unadjusted survey. That's what we're looking for, the ratio precision. The one I'm reading here, the survey has positional accuracy of less than, does not address the items that I'm looking for here in our standards. I'm trying to see that the applicant, number one, has read our standards, and number two, is complying with them, which is the purpose of what we're looking for here. And I'm not seeing that on item number 2. I'm not completely sold that I would deny this application yet, but because I want to go through the rest of the bullet points here. And Tim, I'm going to ask you to do that here in just a second. But at this point, I don't know that the applicant has covered that, which I think is the reason that he was denied the first time.
I think too that even though he has put up on, in his statement right here, the standards of practice in the chapter and verse that we are looking for, 0820-03,
Cody,
I
show
don't
us
think
the
that
drawing.
he has complied with what's in that particular statute.
Okay, I got a comment to make right here just a second. Good, okay. All right, now, zoom in on the lot. That's sort of drawing there in the middle page. Get a little bigger, see how big that is. Okay, now, in our accuracy of surveys, it says, the linear area of closure shall not exceed 1 foot per 7,500 feet of perimeter of the lot of land. Now, here's the catch. When very small lots of 1 acre or less are encountered, the allowable area shall not exceed 1/10 of a foot of positional accuracy at any corner. So he said it correctly. He did say it correctly.
Okay.
That's why we wanted to go back and look at that, because that's that's not a normal approach to it, even though it is in our standards. He meets the standards.
Yep.
Because of the size of the property.
Yep. If I could just as a side note, what just happened right there is the value of all 4 of us being here present to discuss the application's plat in this situation together and to mutually come to an understanding. Whereas if I'm sitting at my desk and I'm reviewing through it, more than likely, if Tim hadn't been there and read that through, I probably would have had serious consideration of denial of that
Right.
certification.
And
But the fact that we're able to here to mutually discuss it together collectively is obviously a huge benefit to that applicant, because I hate to see what could have happened.
And that's the goal,
otherwise.
right.
Right, that's
And
the
that
goal.
is the goal.
And I think so far in the three, we're sort of on the same page, that the plats are the uniqueness to this profession, and that we just don't want to overlook their situation. So whether we start working, well, maybe all of it, we start working on the size dimensions, we don't make them mandatory, but we set them up for, this is what we would prefer to expedite the process, to make it simpler. However, we don't want to, and we put it in legal terms that you can submit what you have, but this is what would be preferable. And I think everything can be uploaded. You can review all of it. But we take into account the possibility and likelihood that we actually do the plat piece and finish the whole process at the meeting. What that costs us is obviously no one could quickly go ahead and take that first exam and be done. But we meet,
We're going to discuss
Okay.
that a little bit further when
Okay.
we get into the exam process.
because the plat is not submitted for the FS, is that right? Okay, so we're good with the FS. We're just talking about for this other one. Yeah, no, I see your issue, without a doubt.
Yeah. Can we look at the other plat on this gentleman, Cody?
So we were good.
All the rest of the bullet points were there.
That was a good catch there, Tim.
Well, that's all right. Look at the certification first, Cody, in the lower right, and then I want to look at his survey.
That light,
Yes.
that bars of light just above the screen.
And then let's go to the lot, Cody.
The rest of them, the other lights are okay. It was reflecting on the screen. I couldn't see the certification.
You're over to the left there.
Yeah, we need, that's fine.
A two-part plat or something.
Yeah, there is an
Go to the
additional
bottom.
page.
Okay, there's the
That's
plat,
what we're looking
okay.
for, yeah. No,
Okay.
sectionalized.
Yeah, okay. Page plat, okay. Go on down, Cody. Go over and blow the legend up in the lower right. Just looking at what his corners. Thought that was a fence, but he's got them everywhere.
Busy place.
Take it back down, go to the next page down at the bottom, Cody. I think that's all right.
I don't recall this platform before.
This was not submitted last time. He
Yeah.
chose to submit a new plat.
You saw that too?
That's what I was looking at, because I'm pretty
Make
sure.
sure that's in there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that that's
It's in there, we just gotta
correct.
find it.
Do you have it in paper?
Each. Cody, do we have these particular plats in hard copy with you?
Well, I've printed out he submitted them electronically, but I've printed.
Document.
I bet you I
when the-
can't read it, can I? Oh, yeah.
When the document contains more than one sheet, the first or title page shall be sealed and signed by the registrant, who is responsible for charge. In addition, each sheet shall be sealed and signed by the registrant or the registrant responsible for that sheet. 2 or more registrants may affix their seals, so forth and so on. But that's a rule of professional conduct. Those are not sealed.
Which rule is that?
It is 0820-04-08, paragraph number 5. In rules of professional conduct.
So if I understand the electronic process, let's say we're reviewing these on our laptops, whatever, and we find this, what we think right now might be a substandard plat. What's the process?
You would enter your note, kind of like you did in the paper world, so we're gonna have a kind of a cover sheet to it, where you would type in, my concern is that this would just not meet such and such code for professional conduct, there's no signature review, at this point, I cannot approve.
All right.
The good thing about that would be that in advance of the meeting,
Right.
if it's something as simple as, you got to stamp each page, then we can get that back to him and have him revise that so he could theoretically stay on the same track.
Certainly, yeah, and
Right.
that's what we want.
Right.
I mean, for example, this one was denied the last time because of the certification. He brought us 2 plats back with the certification, but now he's violated another statute or rule. And it would be my notion, and I don't know what the chair will think, but it'd be my notion to request him to submit all 3 pages of this particular document, signed and sealed, because he's an out-of-state surveyor. And if he does so, then you all will be able to, with our direction, you all would be able to approve him so that we move on.
Yep, yep.
As opposed to
Exactly.
waiting for another time and so forth and so on.
Exactly.
We could-
Because if
we
this
could-
came 2 days after the board meeting, we're literally waiting
Right.
6 weeks or possibly longer, and so, yeah, that's huge.
We recommend that he make those changes, and he makes them. We can send them to you guys for you to check them, and if he's done it,
Whatever
then he
pleasure
can.
that,
Okay, I think, if I understood, everybody here is in agreement that there was a violation in terms of the not signing and stamping the multiple sheets. Cody, could you go through the process here as if I were sitting on my laptop? How do I go about entering that note and submitting it to you?
Well, we're
so
going to
that-
create a form very similar to the one that we already use,
Okay.
where you'll enter your information, verdict, your notes, and any rules or any additional references you want to cite. You'd have the opportunity to do that.
Okay, so
And
are
then-
we just not at that point?
Yeah, I haven't created
Okay,
those
all right, I
those
just wanna
forms
make-
yet.
okay, all right.
But now in the paper world, you've got the note that you can
Right.
proceed, right, so
We've
we'll
got-
still
we've got
move
it
these
on
along, but
paper.
yes.
Do we need, Roxanne, do we need to have a motion relative to this?
Yeah, we
That
just
this
do them
is-
all at
that
once.
we're gonna approve this if this applicant, in other words, this applicant may not even do it until December or something, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Well, I don't know that it necessarily needs a motion or anything,
Okay.
but I definitely, because we haven't done it in the past with others,
Right,
but I do
right,
think
right.
we need to make an understanding that we get back with the applicant, we state what the
Absolutely.
violation was, request that he resubmit plats, and advise staff that should he resubmit those plats with each stamp and sign, that it be approved, without it having to come formally in front of us. Is that?
Yeah, oh,
because
yes,
that's where we wanna
yes,
be
yes,
to,
that's
right?
where we want to be. And I'll be honest with you, that's really where most boards are. For example, in the bigger board that I have, it is a consistent communicating back and forth with our applicants. Now you forgot this. The list was 4 items, you gave me 3, I'm missing 1, and we go back and forth. And the plus to that is we do move them faster to get them working. The downside is the board office, and that's part of our responsibility, is in this constant back and forth. The board said 3 things, you're still missing these 2. But I think we will move our applicants faster, and we will use your time wiser. So both of those things.
All right.
I noticed you put that in the trash. Do we need to do that also?
Unless you want to keep it
Oh,
for some, if there's some lingering, see it again. But it'll always be, you don't have to worry about messing it up because it'll always be on the server. So if you accidentally, I deleted it, it'll still be there. This is John Benjamin Monarch, who was one of our late entries to the last meeting. You can see in the notes why he was denied. He has submitted new descriptions and new revised plats. I'll pass out the descriptions because those you can read pretty easy.
That's gonna be on the screen? Okay.
How big that plat is in relation to a typical page, yeah.
You shrink it down a little bit so we can kind of see it. I know it's huge. Go down in the lower right, let's look at his certification and seal and so forth.
which is basically. Same here, that's what he has said right here, that this is a.
Is or adjacent to the seal on documents which the registered.
Normally, I would have been like, he didn't sign the stamp, but that's not the way it is.
And we added that when we changed professional conduct. The reason we added it was because it was in the engineer architects, adjacent to the seal. That was fine, Cody. Got another one?
Yeah.
Another plat? Just leave it that size and go on down, right straight down the page. You're gonna get to what I want to see to start with anyway. Typically, or right anyhow. Same as the other, that's fine. Break it down so we can look at the plat.
Ooh, busy.
Yeah. Roxanne, here's a good example of this is a large plat with many sides on it. And you see the tables to the lower left, that's are all line tables to tell you what all that information means, because the lines are so short, you couldn't put it up there without it being so cluttered.
So in the thought of the new concept of what we'll propose that we prefer them to do, they would include the plat, but not all of those descriptions. Those could be left to another page. Is that correct? No? You still want to see them on it? Okay.
They're actually an integral part of the plat.
Yes.
And if it was a separate document, in the real world, there's no assurity that those two documents will stay
Match.
together.
I got you.
They'll stay together.
Okay.
This would be the kind of plat, this is a great demonstration of what we're looking for, but it also be the kind of plat that we really would sort of discourage per se. But again, as Jay says, we're not trying to put them in a box.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine that that individual knows, oh, no, they don't mean for this plat to be on an 11 by 17 because it doesn't make sense for that plat, right? So they would know, I've got to go with something bigger, otherwise they won't be able to understand it. That's my gut, that if we don't force them and put them in the box, that professional would know this plat isn't going to work for them on an 11 by 17. And I think we respect that. And then it
I
comes
also
in.
think that it gives us the flexibility in your criteria on the website for the application to be able to stipulate that, all documents will be scanned and they need to be within a, multiple of 8.5 by 11 or something of that nature, because of current department policy or
Right.
or procedures or whatever it may be.
Right. But however, we take into account
Right,
that plats
right.
fall under a different, and so if your particular plat being sent in doesn't meet those requirements, please feel free
Right.
to send the
right.
one
Yeah,
that,
something of that nature.
yeah.
I
No,
mean,
I'm
you
with
and- You
you.
and Miss Laura can handle all that stuff.
We will chop that up and you all will view it, so it's, so it makes sense. I love it.
Are we good with this one, guys?
Well, we got one more. Take a look at here.
To both of them.
Recognize
That must have been a different
that
applicant
other
there.
Is this,
Yeah, that right there is not something.
is,
Yeah, because he had three. Remember we looked at three legals, Jay?
That's right.
Yeah, he had three.
I'm good with that one. Anybody
I'm good.
disagree? Okay. Yeah, I think we're good with the one we see there on the screen. Was that Monarch?
That is.
in that case, I'm all right with what's up there.
There is not simplified.
No.
That is not simplified. I mean,
That would be something that I would expect to see from an out-of-state applicant, not an in-state applicant.
I mean, I just get the sense that he's trying to, quote unquote, impress you that he worked on such a involved survey, and I would
Right.
say just the opposite.
I sometimes get that sense as well,
So,
that
yeah,
they're trying
yeah.
to.
This may be your best work ever, but what I want to see is simplification. Make it. I mean, don't give us an avenue to find an issue with a survey. Just make it easy and simple. Sometimes that's not what we get.
Comedy applicant who didn't have certification, They resubmitted digitally. Also have paper copies. Good.
Major?
Yes. That's the description.
Real quick, Cody, is this plat number 1 and this is plat number 2? Or is this altogether a single plat?
I believe that's all.
Name and reference to deed, but, and he does give some.
Beginning point must be so selected, so it's so forth and so on, okay. The description shall include the names of adjoining property owners and is that what you're saying?
It is wordy, but
Okay.
I think what's there is here,
Okay.
of what you just read.
But, here you go. The description shall include the monument or marker if found or placed and shall describe the size, material, whether found or placed.
There it is.
I don't see that no place. That's why,
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for you to read to me. Covering himself on the plats.
Yeah.
He's got the iron pins with the description.
they don't have anything here.
He's got nothing he missed. Yeah, he's got some issues
They
here.
don't have
That's what that is, a blow. I kind of,
Okay, well, let's just live with that.
yeah, let's go with this.
Pardon me. 72.
Cody, just for clarification, is this a plat that we've already reviewed? Was in his package, is there the cover sheet that says it was rejected and for what reason? Usually we state does not comply with whatever rule. Is that in there?
That's true, 'cause that was complicated. So these pins are.
Hoffman guy did this one.
Well, explain it. Written description.
Have his paper file?
Yeah, let me check.
Official out there to give him the authority to do that.
Right.
Try to make sure.
Property lines.
But we've had surveyors that say, I can't make a petition.
This one here, I'm like, I just don't.
Right.
I know it ain't seen that small.
Very
I
true.
kind of wonder if before we got the folder and Cody told us he didn't include written descriptions, so we just written descriptions, didn't even look at the plat, review the plat.
I don't recall seeing this plat at all.
Yeah, I'm wondering if,
1 in 70.
I kind of think that you probably told us that he didn't include the written description, so we just, wrote off written description and that's what we need, but, yeah, because I can tell you, I mean, having looked at this plat here, Tim and I both, there's some things that are kind of glaring in there. I can't imagine that we would have thoroughly reviewed it before and said,
Right.
the plat's good, we just need a
I
description.
guarantee you, I'll have to go back
okay.
and look at the video, but I guarantee you.
In the subdivision, if I go,
Still, I have issues with this one, I can't approve it.
No, his legal.
ratio of precision is
Yeah, there's more
Get
going
on
on
it quick.
here.
1/10.
These others have been one little tweaky thing. This guy's got issues.
Well, these other guys have been much more.
Really, yeah. Okay, obviously, we need to get back with this applicant, with the reasons why, and obviously, we need to be able to provide that to you. What's the avenue? Before we just had the folder here, we write it down. What's the avenue now?
Teaching while I'm,
Similar, or?
Okay.
but I'm not looking at all of those, so.
All right, see this one? Five eighths by 30 inch set with cap. Yeah, I mean, this one,
How's this plat look as far as?
surveyors at home, I don't know if you got them in your name.
So you sign that thing? It's set.
It's set, that's exactly right.
What did he say in that statement?
I hate surveyors that do that because they never set them.
Yeah, I know.
You call it on the carpet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we just had to go around setting those. We're gonna get them. And I tell them, I say, you best get them set before I get there.
Yes, absolutely.
I said, because your client ain't gonna like me.
That's what it says.
And what was the, can you give me the rule reference to the written description with the modification?
820, 03, 09, let's see, there's another paragraph. 3A. This one meets it.
Yeah, that one's fine.
He's good on this one. Other than the to be set stuff. I mean, I'm a fan of that, but I mean, it's what he put on here. That's his business.
I gotta list them down here.
Primarily, it was, 820-03-76, no, I'm sorry, 820-03-07, A.
What's the violation? Which plat has the violations? What's the title of the plat? This one here? All right, so basically we got the description fails to include the monumentation set or found with reference. The plat fails to include the names of the adjoiners and deed references.
Well, the description failed to include, the joiners also. Because he didn't list them on the plat, so he didn't list them in the description.
Yeah. All that paperwork back to, that was the plats and descriptions he submitted. Basically what I've done is dated the violations with the description of what the violation. All right, Cody, if we can move on to the next one after Mr. Payne there.
Yeah, we got one,
Mr. Vic.
one set left to look at. This one, addressed the issue that you got.
Very good, thank you.
Plats for that to make sense. I'm not sure.
Well, if he submitted
So-
2 new plats, I think we'll just
That's
start
why
from
he
square
doesn't
one
have
and
that
review
this
the
is done to
entire
Tennessee
plats, and
standards portion.
not just what the original
Well,
violation was.
Got it, so you don't have to do that because he's not out of state.
Question's number 4, but you read it, Jay, and see what you think. Chastain, we know. Georgia does, Galen.
Do what?
They do good work in Georgia.
Yeah, he does work in Georgia, apparently.
And the date of the signing shall be placed on the surveys.
That's pretty good. Have you ever seen one of
What I
that
do is I
on
sign
there
across
before?
the
No, as a matter of fact, I
Still
haven't.
handwriting.
First.
And normally that date, for me, that date is the same date as this date. Try to do because that way it's all tied together.
I don't see that, that's the date.
Frankly, I don't have a problem with that.
Right, I don't either,
I think
yeah.
that's
I
outstanding.
think I might like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Back to my second thing I noticed. On his certification, again, on certification, he's got the basics here. I hereby certify, category whatever, the ratio of precision, the unjust, boom, he's got that, okay. Go back to that bullet point list.
Acronyms.
Does it
so I
not
would
also
be
have
able
to have in there the,
You,
I'll learn them before,
I don't know.
looking all over
one
and I
of
don't
these
see
days.
that.
Yep.
Let's see.
Statement that the survey was
that
done in
might not.
compliance with current Tennessee minimum standards of practice.
Find that for me, would you? I'll look at this email. I'll do it. You do it.
You do it.
I didn't do it.
You be his buddy, right?
I'm licensed in Georgia. I ain't doing it.
Me either. I'm licensed in Georgia too, yeah. We may not be real quick.
Yeah, really.
All the old ones that
Yeah.
had issues.
Well, actually, we have an FS applicant.
Doing some extra research.
It's just,
Extra work.
Uh-huh.
That he knows what the right of way is and he put it on the edge of
Yeah, he's a 2.
Qualify under, would he qualify under the high school?
Unfortunately
No, okay.
That's it. As a high school education, he has to have 10 years of progressive experience.
Right, which he doesn't.
Associate degree, he's got to have 30 hours surveying and then 4 years of progressive experience.
He's applying with the.
Look here, that darn Lingerfeld guy.
Get you every time. Do you have the, this is Mr.
But we also need to respond to his email, and the response to his email is conditions warrant setting a reference for a monument on an offset. The location shall be selected so that the monument reference lies on a line of the survey or a prolongation of that line. So if you have points that's in the center of a road, you gotta set it on there, and that was his question from his previous plat.
On these plats, that's right.
0820, 03, .07, 4.
Okay.
That actually answers his question about, in other words, anytime a point is in the center of a road, a creek, or basically an inaccessible point, or a point that was not gonna stay there, wherever, wherever that line comes in, we're obligated to set a point on that line where it comes in. So that point could actually be located if it was actually necessary to locate that.
Yeah.
I think, part of his question was if the center
Where the lines come in.
Just where they come
on
in.
either end, yes.
saying that we were okay with not having set each individual angle point at the two endpoints
Right.
should be monument.
Where the line enters and leaves.
Road right-of-way type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really, because it amazed me, is this the one from his
This
original? or is
is,
this a new one?
Well, I have the original.
Hi, Cody.
Gentlemen, if you're discussing board business, you need to do it into the microphones.
Speaking up to.
Just so it gets on the way.
Okay, what I'm looking at here is the closer precision, which I find interesting that the data precision of 1 foot.
The
and
reason he was denied because it is not the board's responsibility
77,144 feet.
to surmise the courses
I find
that he
interesting when you
takes.
come down here perimeter
In other words,
survey, a closer
it's not our
precision
responsibility to go through that
of 1
transcript
foot
and tear it apart
311,
and say, okay, you have all the
638
correct courses.
feet.
That is what he
Then come
marked
down here,
right there,
And
okay?
he takes the
I don't dispute
first
that
part
these
up here,
courses are on
which
this transcript
that's
that he
part
has
of
now
what is
highlighted.
written in our
Yes.
book.
But
Yes.
in the application, and I don't know if
If
it's
we're
on this or
asking our
not,
state
Yes.
applicants to do
Right on
something
that.
it
because
stipulates.
they do it to Ohio standards.
Yeah.
And we're asking, okay, you may be doing it to Ohio standards. Go state that.
May not now,
if
but
he's doing it in
I know in the
Tennessee,
application it
and he's
stipulates
done it under
that
this
it's the
guy's
applicant's
ticket, it ought to
responsibility
be automatically
to
done to that. I don't know if
delineate
we
to the board what courses that they're claiming
put that on there.
for credit.
Our in-state
That's the courses he
things,
claimed
maybe
for
we should
credit.
so state
That's what
that.
we
Yeah. Well,
evaluated.
what I'm after is.
In other words,
I
don't feel like it's our
current rules
responsibility
clearly
to
state
have
that,
to go
number
back
one, it must state
into,
the category survey that it is, and he's got that. Number two, it
his
must state,
transcript
the
and tear it
ratio
apart and say,
precision
okay,
unadjusted survey. It's
you know,
got
hey, you
that.
didn't tell me
The
about
third
this
thing it
one.
lists is that
but,
it must
you know,
state
it's
on the
good.
survey that this survey conforms
makes
to
any sense.
Tennessee minimum standards.
Because now if it's a BS in surveying,
You're not gonna
then
find it in that book.
we basically are already
You'll find
familiar
it
with
in
it.
the new
But
printed one.
this is,
Okay.
Which
this
Tim
is
has.
an associated degree because of
even if
the
it's
way they do it.
in-state done.
And,
Even if it's in-state done, yeah, anybody.
and he
Your-
did
your
not
survey,
mark
my
that. In
survey
other words,
has
he
to
only
say that.
submitted
I
these.
won't argue
He
that.
should have submitted
And
a
he doesn't say
form
that on this one either.
with
There you
these.
go, right here.
There should have been a form submitted in
A
his original
certification on the
application
face of the survey,
that only listed those.
which shall have the following minimum
And
content.
you probably got
Okay,
it in the
there's your
paper right there.
certification, or, certification, there's your ratio precision. Statement that the survey was done in compliance with current, don't see that on there.
Enough said, it's not on there, so
But I think,
Right
I
there.
wanna get back with the applicant, let him the opportunity to add that to his survey and get it back quick.
that's
And we can get him in it.
Yeah.
Almost.
And I have to say that the same completion stands for this one too, because it does not have that statement on there, so. Reference to scripture is on both plats.
My response,
Oh.
my response to this applicant, Cody, would be, yes, he in fact has the correct courses, and yes, I would approve it. However, the way he submitted it, yeah, he has to demonstrate it properly in his application process. That would be my answer to it.
He met with his advisor.
Oh, yeah, I know,
I guess
yeah.
helped him out to do that.
That's what I'm saying, is, you know, I can't assume
Yeah.
or read into, nor can you.
Right.
And that's the only problem with that one. He's fine otherwise.
Great.
So he was an FS?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, you can, as far as I'm concerned, we're good.
Great.
If you need to sign something, let me know.
On Mr. Vick,
Yes.
we're gonna deny it again, and that's the reason I put right there with the date. It's it, if he modifies his survey and gets it back to y'all,
Something we could potentially do for the.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
The deficiency is the same on both plats.
Gotcha.
Where I was talking about putting the racial precision now then.
All right, Cody, does that cover all the
Yeah, that's all I
applications and
got.
reviews? And
For applications.
Yes.
Do we have others that we're gonna look at later too?
No, this is it. This is it. So I was explaining to Michael, you both met Kimberly Whaley and Michael Driver. So they're going to do our next stage, the application, the Tennessee state specific. So that's what they'll cover.
Great.
If we're ready to move on. I don't know if the board needs a quick break or if we want to get that done and then we do lunch. What would you prefer?
You want 5 minutes?
I like 5-minute
5
break.
minutes?
Yeah, how about a quick
You got
5-minute?
it.
Yeah,
5 minutes.
that'd be
That's-
great.
What I do want to explain to Michael is we took advantage of this morning to review the online application process that they will be reviewing. These are all applications that have been presented, and they, the board, and correct me if I'm wrong, reviews these independently in the paper world, not as part of the meeting traditionally, correct? And then letters based on denials or approvals or whatever's missing have been sent. We went ahead and reviewed those with missing items the way they will on their server at home so they could see the system and what it looks like and not delay these folks until October 27th so they could end up taking their exams. So they've made decisions on each of them, and Cody will proceed sending them letters, and I think most were approved?
Most of them.
the 7?
Yep, most of them.
So that's what they've covered.
Okay, we'll just take a
Take
5-minute
a
recess
5-minute,
and be
sounds
right back
great.
with Mr. Driver.
Thank you.
Off, Cody.
Betsy, you overwhelmed yet? All right, quick 5-minute break. We're back in session here. Roxana has a few things to hand out here, and we've got some guests with us that I guess we're going to be going over. Let's see. Looks like, is this handout in conjunction with what we're about to discuss?
It
the
is.
contract? Okay.
It's about the exam, and we've got Michael Driver here with legal and Kimberly Whaley, and so they'll be able to answer questions much more than Laura and I will.
Good morning.
Good
Morning.
How's everyone? Okay, previously back in, I guess it was July, we discussed with Mr. Messier existing contract for the TS exam, which is set to expire March 30th of 2017. At that time, the board expressed interest in pursuing an amendment to Mr. Messier's existing contract because his contract is at its 5-year maximum, but expressed interest in extending and adding an amendment to give the TS exam one last time before the expiration of the contract. What you have before you is the amendment that has been drafted by legal, and basically this is a very shortened version of the contract, but it removes all of the information about having given the other 2 exams. So it would limit it down to just giving the TS exam. So there's a February date, February 2017, that would be the targeted date to give the TS exam one last time. Additionally, the development of the exam remains the same at $700, and that would be for the 2017. And the TS scoring remains the same, and then there is $2,088 in order to give just this one TS exam in 2017. And what we're asking for today is basically to any revisions to this amendment that you have. Additionally, the authority to work with Mr. Messier under these guidelines, the contract maximum, which has been increased. So we're asking the board to grant the department the authority to negotiate an amendment under these guidelines.
Okay, and just for clarification, this is just an extension of the existing contract for up until the 1st of March, is that correct?
March
It
30th.
actually doesn't extend the term of the contract. The contract actually originally ran through that date, but didn't actually provide for an exam to be given in the first quarter of 2017.
Okay.
So what this does is actually adds Mr. Messier providing an additional TS exam in the first quarter of 2017.
Okay, so it's not an extension of the date, rather it's just an addition of the testing, of the
That's
TS testing.
correct.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Okay,
Yes, because this contract does not allow for an extension. It is at its 5-year maximum.
okay, very good. Just a quick question offhand, the first one I see here. I understand that originally hit on the fee structure for Mr. Messier, under the examination administration, the original fee was $83.50 per exam. Of course, that was for all 3 exams at the time?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. And then obviously now we're just limiting it to the TS, 1 exam only. What was the rationale behind the final number of 2088? Is it a ratio? Is there some?
I believe that's just a third of
Okay.
a third of the original rate. And of course, I will note, and I think Ms. Whaley noted this as well, that at this point, Mr. Messier hasn't agreed to the terms of this contract.
Right,
This
right.
is what we're going to bring
Suggested.
forward, but that is a prorated
Okay.
1/3
Okay.
Since
I
it's
just wanted to
1/3 of
understand
the
that and get that on the
exams. Yes,
record. Right.
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Are we open for questions? Okay, a couple of questions. Number one, is there any magic in February versus March?
The current contract does say 45 days to allow him to grade the exam. If he were to give it in March, that would not allow him the full amount of time in order to grade the exam and get it back to us by the end of the contract.
Okay, now let me ask the question there. Is he obligated to conclude all matters of the contract by his contract termination date?
Yes, sir. My understanding is normally we would require and wouldn't be obligated to pay for services performed outside of the contract period. So once the contract's terminated, the services should be resolved at that time. It would be possible, I guess, to say if he agreed to it, that he agrees, to provide it in the first quarter, and that irrespective of when he does it, he agrees to have, notwithstanding the original 45-day limitation, that he would agree to complete the scoring by March 31st. So if he gave it on March 30th, excuse me, I added a day to March.
No, it has 31 days.
Oh, it's just through the 30th.
The contract terminates
I was
March
like, I really
30th.
thought that was right. That essentially, if he gave it on March 1st, that he could agree to say, and though I would normally have 45 days, I will complete grading this exam by the 30th, if that makes sense.
Okay, I got two more things, just right off the bat. Why is the statement in there that says the exam shall be given on a Friday for 2 hours in the morning?
That's actually
Why is he being limited to that?
that was actually in the original terms of echoed from the original terms of the contract. I can't say why that was there.
Just for your edification, the exam has been given on Saturday for quite a few exams. Just for your edification.
Yeah,
Not
no,
that
I
that means
appreciate
anything.
that.
I personally feel like that sentence should not even be included.
Real quick, Cody, we're gonna.
Yeah, I actually spoke with Mr. Messier after our last meeting, and he now that we no longer have the PS, prefers administering the TS on Friday. So,
I would think that would be somewhat contractor option, if that's fair language.
I don't think we have any problem just striking that provision. I mean,
No.
he'll give the exam when he gives it, and
Okay, stay with me here just a minute. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to move away from this document, thinking in the future, okay?
okay.
Atypically, we give the TS examination on the NCAA, the old NCAAS date for the PS, which would be in April, which usually is the second or third week of April, okay? So, having said that, the next examination potentially would be in the second or third week of April, potentially, if we stay with that particular format, okay?
Okay.
Well, Mr. Messier's contract clearly ends March 30.
Yes, sir.
So my question now would be, where are we at and what are we doing about fulfilling a potential new contract, whether it be with Mr. Messier or someone else?
We would let that contract through a request for proposals process. We've had some discussions with our contract coordinator internally, and I think that's going to be on your agenda in October, if I'm not mistaken, to bring you the request for proposals that would be that would give any member of the public who's capable of providing exam services, including Mr. Messier, to place a bid to provide those services beginning at the termination of this contract.
I was looking, and the only reason I asked that question is obvious, is because I was looking for a seamless transition to move to where the next thing is, because part of that is the contract language that we have with Mr. Messier specifies a certain amount of board interaction with the exam writer and proctor. And because of my concern about the seamless transition, we're going to have some time to deal with whomever gets the next contract. Obviously, Mr. Messier has performed this service for this board since 1994 or 95. So the seamless transition has been very seamless for a long time, other than there's been some other issues along the way. But, if it's a potential that we change vendors, and it could very well be, and I understand that, then this board would have to have the opportunity to be able to perform those functions with that, because, Mr. Messier is only obligated to provide certain things at the conclusion of his contract back to this board.
Correct. And I mean, I think it would be our hope to have that request for proposals, approved at the next meeting, led about that time. I think they can take 2 or 3 months usually for that process to resolve by the time you do letting the proposal and getting it back. And I don't want to promise dates because I'm not in charge of those things, but I would think, hopefully we would have at least 30 to 60 days before the termination of this contract to have a new vendor in place. That would be taking the reins. Again, not necessarily a new vendor,
And
but
I would-
whomever is taking that contract.
Correct, and I would want to flag Ms. Roxanne with the standpoint of, whatever window of transition this is, this may mean meeting or meetings in addition to the norm in order to make sure that all of this is appropriate because of the necessary board feedback to the vendor for the particular examination. It would be different if we were only hiring a proctor, but we're not just hiring a proctor.
We're going to look at all the avenues of what makes sense so that we open different possibilities for the person that's waiting a long time to test. So, yeah, we'll look at everything.
Very good. Michael, real quick, just kind of touching base back on my initial question about the fee. Just a little quick math in my head. I don't know that the numbers that we show equates to 1/3 of what the full value was. If the intention is to make it 1/3, let's get that corrected. If the intention is the number that's shown, that's fine. I was just asking what was the procedure to come up with that magic formula for that number. I didn't know if there was one or. But anyway, either way, I just want to point that out that if the intention is 1/3, let's get that number corrected.
It's really the intention of the board. If you would like it to be exactly 1/3 of it, we can certainly change that number, and we will work in the negotiation with him, because again, we've actually expanded the contract. We've included an additional $10,000 in order, based on how many we've given historically, how many we'll give in October, to make sure there is enough money in the contract. So again, this is being presented to the board for revision so that we can then begin with your authorization, which is what we're seeking today, is to negotiate with Mr. Messier in order to give this exam one more time and have it graded prior to the expiration of the contract.
Anyone here have disagreement with making the number 1/3 to start with? Obviously, there's still negotiations with Mr. Messier, but a good place to start from.
I'm in agreement, but let me ask a question about that to clarify. The figure, you have 2 different areas up there. One is development and maintain the TS exam, and you have for 2017 $700, and then you have 2,088. I think the total of those is 1/3 of what the 88 or 8350 was.
Really? That's it.
Somewhere in that
Seven
neighborhood.
plus that, which makes your number.
Okay.
And
I
so
got you.
Make sure
if that's the
make sure
case,
math.
then
That's
you
close.
do have
Your fuzzy
1/3.
math is
It's
good.
close.
It's good.
If you can, I do want to
That
point
might
out,
be-
it's possible what it was, okay,
It's close.
that the 2088 is also, and I apologize because I'm giving this off the top of my head here, was given 4 times a year
Okay.
prior to now, and it actually looks like my memory was bad and I didn't run the math, but that's actually, within $2 of being a quarter
Yeah. Yep.
of
Yep.
8350, which is, I said 1/3, that was wrong. It is a quarter of 8350, which was based on, it was being given 4 times a year.
Okay.
This is now being given
Not-
one
not
time a
3
year,
times
not
before.
3 times.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I think that's that if my memory correct.
It was only given.
We've only been given
Was it
twice,
three?
Mr. Driver.
Was it twice?
Twice, April and October.
Okay.
We've been doing that for a long time.
Long time.
Yeah.
Okay, any other items that stand out?
Well, I would like
Further
to-
questions?
I would like to make a suggestion in the spirit of the questions that I ask. I think the date of the exam, I think it should be left up to the proctor as long as it's coordinated with our staff. Whether it be February or March or whenever, and I think the proctor, or in this case, he'd be acting as a proctor, and then he'll be a scorer. But the exam administration, I think it should be left up to Mr. Messier when he wants to administer it, and what he has to do to get the results if the results are required by March 30. And then that way the onus is on him, and he makes the decision, and we don't put him in a box, to use Jay's favorite term.
Well, and Tim's right. I mean, Mr. Messier, he understands the contract date. He understands that. He understands that there's 45 days to get that grading period in, and I'm sure in his effort, obviously, to be compensated for his services, he'll make those dates. So I agree with what Tim says. Let's work with the contractor to establish the date. And I'm sure, he'll work with you. It's fine. If there's a suggested date, I'm sure he'll do everything he can with his schedule to meet that date. And if not, I'm sure he'll work with you to get one there. So,
So what the suggested terms, Mr. Lingerfeld, would be that he'll provide the contractor would provide the exam on a date as chosen by the contractor, as approved by the director of the board. Would that be, or as agreed by the director of the board? Would that? I mean, I don't know that we're going to give him.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's
Or,
fine.
or I mean, just any date
that's
he
fine.
selects. I don't
that's
think.
fine. He just would need to communicate a date through Roxanne or Cody to our chairman, Mr. Kaufman, and basically just for approval purposes. I have no problem with that.
yeah, I prefer that.
If that's a procedure.
Kimberly,
Okay.
you look like you have a question.
With the board, also added the board chairman.
I think as long as it's one person, do you agree, as long as they let Cody or I in the office know the date, just so we know as calls are coming in what date we're talking about?
Just whatever's the simplest.
Okay.
We want
I think so.
We want to be within the rules, and whatever the simplest is.
Right, I think the big thing is coming to a date that's agreeable with everybody, whether it be Friday or Saturday, Tuesday, whatever day, as long as he is delivering it by the end of his contract period is really the big, that's all that we really need him to do, is give it on a day and he deliver it by the end, so that we get the examination scores, because that is what is most important, is the scores of these candidates, so that they can begin their professional success. Because this is the last piece they're missing, correct?
Right, yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Okay, so we've got some clarification there on item 1 as far as the date, of course, working it out with staff, and then the second clarification was on the value, the compensation values there, which we'll work out as well. Was there any other items below that anyone had questions on?
Mr. Lingerfeld also mentioned removing the specific date
Right.
as part of,
Up in item 1?
yes,
Yes,
that's
sir.
the second, I believe the second sentence. Yes, exams shall be given on a Friday for 2 hours in the morning. We will strike that.
Things that are coming back to me. He was giving 2 exams before, correct? 2 of the exams? Is
Well,
that under the terms of his contract? It was this exam and one of the other
PS,
exams.
He administered the paper and pencil version of the PS examination. So
Right.
he was giving 2
So,
exams.
so how we got to,
Right.
I'm piecing this together
Right.
in my somewhat lack of coffee-addled brain this morning. I apologize. I'm slower than I would like. He was giving the exam 2 times a year, 2 exams each time, which is
Correct.
how we ended up at a quarter of
That
the
makes
yearly
sense.
fee.
Makes sense. We got it.
That's correct.
I was confident it made sense.
There was a
Not
method
that
to the
we were
madness.
necessarily stuck with it, but that we had some rationale
Yes.
for it. I was just going to get there, and I think that's what it was. Is that it was there were 2 exams being given 2 times a year for 4 total exams. This was 1 exam, and so the total fee was a quarter
Correct.
of the previous. Are you okay? Did you want to increase the offer on that to a third? Did you want to offer it at a quarter, at a half? I mean, it's up to you all what you
Well,
want to make
i-
that
i-
offer at.
Is that okay, the exam scoring is the per exam, but the administration is just that administration.
That's correct.
As for actually
Right.
proctoring
And-
the exam.
And for obvious reasons, I think we didn't change the per exam score because that's the same work it's been. It's just however many exams times that amount
Right.
is what it is.
Right, well, I think I'm comfortable with the method behind your madness now that we understand the numbers, how those came about. I assume that this is an offer to Mr. Messier and that it's up to negotiation or open to negotiation if either side deems it need. Okay.
So yeah,
So
what
if he
we
has some rationale behind, no, the number
Right.
needs to be different.
right. So what
It's
what
open to discussion.
What we would ask for today is subject to the changes, which is striking the set date, adding that it has to be given on the Friday, 2 hours in the morning, setting instead that it shall be set on a date approved, by the director of the board, and authorizing us to make this offer and to essentially negotiate the terms of this amendment up to the current maximum of the contract.
As a clarification, is the director going to be Roxanne, or is it going to be the chair of the board? It doesn't matter.
Well, I guess
They'll either one do a
I
wonderful
was
job.
thinking Roxana.
It needs to be,
That's fine.
It needs
That's
to be
perfectly
staff.
fine.
I mean, but I mean, again, this is up to you all.
No, that's
I'm
perfectly
telling
fine
you what
with
I
me.
was thinking, which is not
I just was
necessarily-
clarifying.
Yes, sir.
That. Okay.
It would,
Yeah, that's
It would be
fine.
Roxana, and I think if Roxana had any concern, she wouldn't hesitate to
Oh, absolutely. I'd-
reach
oh,
out
yeah.
to the board
Yes.
chair or to, convene a meeting if that turned out to be necessary to
Yes.
get you all.
Okay, any other items on that? Okay, so you're looking for approval for
We need a motion.
this just as such.
A motion to,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion with the revisions that Mr. Driver has added to the document before us, that we approve it.
All right, motion on the floor.
Second.
With a second, any further discussion or question? All right, with a voice vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved. All right.
See you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, ma'am, we'll be here.
And that's when we're going to talk about the go
New one.
forward, the
The new
future.
one.
This was
Thank
always
you.
this was always going to have to be a two-part process in order to do the current exam, to extend the current exam, and to prepare for the expiration of this contract. So,
Absolutely.
we ready next time? Thank
Great.
you, gentlemen.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
all.
much.
it's always a pleasure.
Very helpful, thank you.
We are at 11:25. Mr. Chair, if you want to continue, we are on to new business. I'll let you all decide when you want to.
Let's see, let's go
What
ahead,
you've got.
the first item under new business, the application process, public chapter 1053. Is that a lengthy item?
It was on the document that you submitted, so.
Yeah, those are the, each of those were on the previous agenda
Right,
under
right.
new business.
We
that
may be
did
good and not
get.
need to cover this if it's been covered. I've got nothing.
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask a question, I think either the state-specific exam process discussion or the application process discussion is where we were going to talk about the logistics.
I think it was too,
of
yeah.
Going through all of that, one of those items. I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
which one we want to call it, old or new.
Gotcha.
But that's a very lengthy discussion in my mind.
Yeah, I think we still have more to discuss on the state-specific exam. In fact, I'm sure we do. And that really was the genesis of this meeting, to be quite honest with you. So I think we have quite a bit to discuss there. I'll tell you what, since we're coming up on 11:30, why don't we go ahead and take a break for lunch here, gather our thoughts such that when we come back after lunch, we've got a game plan ready to get back to where we were heading to. Does this sound good?
Yes.
All right, does 1 o'clock sound?
Up to you all, depends how early and how you want to get out, if you want to do just an hour.
Yeah, I'd prefer 12:30 is what I prefer.
I'm with
If y'all
you.
are acceptable
Yes.
with that?
I'm with you.
Yeah,
12:30 sounds
12:35.
good.
Let's do 12:30.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Contact.
Okay, certainly want to welcome everyone back. I trust that everybody had a good lunch this afternoon. We enjoyed our time down at the farmer's market.
Good.
It's always a good atmosphere, especially get down there a little bit early, kind of beat the crowd. It's kind of nice.
That was great. Good.
Okay, getting back on business here. I do want to touch base. I think we're going to have a pretty lengthy discussion, a little bit more on the Tennessee state-specific exam. So in an effort to kind of cover our bases here first, there's a couple of items under new business that I would like to touch base on briefly. 2 items I think we may want to push back to our meeting here at the end of the month, and then we'll get back on the state-specific exam. Under the new business, Cody, you wanted to touch base a little bit on the wall certificates. There was a little small item of business we need to cover on that.
That's correct. We hear a lot from our licensees, since we have not been able to provide them with wall certificates for about a year, either new licensees that are requesting one, because, maybe their boss has one, or somebody else, that's kind of their goal, or people that have either lost or had theirs damaged as well. We've been unable to provide the fancy wall certificate for them since the lady who did them retired. We did take on a new staff member at the beginning of the summer who feels like she should be able to do the calligraphy that's necessary for those certificates, but she would need the pins, whatever they are, the special pins to do it. And if I think Nicole was working on it, but then she left. So if we can get her those pins, then we may have have her draft one up and present it to you guys at the meeting at the end of the month, just to see if that would be acceptable.
Can I ask, just because this piece is new to me, so this is something we used to do before that at some point stopped? Okay. And the office actually wrote, did this nice certificate?
$100 of our, there's an application fee, then there's a $100 certificate fee. Part of that is not just the
License.
paper license, but we have copies upstairs. I can show you the big certificate.
The certificate he's referring to is I equate it to like a college diploma.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's something that these people have worked years and
Absolutely.
years for.
And it came from the regulatory board?
Yes, our board, Donna had a lady, Donna Mulder, when she was here.
Yeah.
There was a lady that she knew that did calligraphy. And this lady did our certificates, probably did all of ours
she did.
for years. And as Jay said, it's really the final piece of the puzzle for the person to get their license. Because it's something they're going to put in a picture frame and mount on their wall and be there as long as they practice. And during the time that Miss Nicole was here, this lady retired, and the thought at that time was, well, they're not needed. And we hammered, and as Cody aptly said, over the last year, it's been very problematic. Even to the point that we were sort of told if we wanted them, we could do them ourselves. In a meeting.
Meaning the surveyors could go out and get them
No,
themselves?
we were told that if we wanted them, we as the board, we could
board
do
get it
them
done.
ourselves as the board. So that's what we were told, and it's a public record, so I'm not saying anything.
No, I believe you.
Public
I
record.
just, yeah.
But we're very grateful that there's someone on your staff that would be willing to take that on. Of course, Donna saw to it this lady was paid. She was paid, I don't know, it was $5 or $10 a certificate or something. There was a fee. I remember Donna telling me about it. It wasn't very much, maybe $7.50 or something. But the lady did a marvelous job, and all the surveyors across the state just love them. But we've hit a roadblock, and
Well, I get the
they're not
roadblock.
getting them, and it's kind of, I'm just going to say it's a little insulting to me that we're not able to provide those for the licensee, because that's really the last thing that we give them as a conclusion of their hard work and passing the examination. And then really the only other communications they see with us are renewing their license and sending in their PDHs and so forth and so on. And that's throughout the rest of their career, unless there's a problem. So these are very, very important to us, and they're more so important, especially to a new licensee.
That new licensing. So I get it. I just know that it doesn't exist. I worked at the BPR for attorneys. We didn't send them anything. They got their license, and they worked
It
many
is-
years for
it
that.
is
so.
another one of those unique to the
Yeah,
surveyors boards.
yeah. No, I get
There's
it.
many, but
And typically
But
what
it is.
happens is when you get a roster of the surveyors that have passed the examination, that would trigger the certificates being prepared.
Right,
And
just like
generally, for example, for the people that take it in October that pass the exam, usually would know about it sometime in December. Then that would trigger that list being made, and if they could be made, we'd see it at the end of the January meeting, or maybe it might be the April meeting. But we, the board, then sign them, and then they're mailed out to the new registrant with a nice, Donna had a very nice letter that congratulated them from the department and the board that went along with the certificate, and it's a very, very nice thing to receive in the mail.
So I definitely can promise you that I will look at this, find out when it stopped, if there is money to have covered this, because Cody's mentioning $100. I don't believe that we can use someone from the board staff and pay them to do this. And I also don't think they would have the time to do them unless we're talking about 20 a year. You know, I
That's
don't
about
know.
what you're talking about.
Yeah, so if the volume is that little, then that becomes a different story. So, but I definitely will chat with Brian, kind of get an understanding if it's, I get the symbolic side to it. I know that it probably isn't, it isn't something that we can print. I'm guessing it's bigger than the normal certificates, right?
That was what was
Yeah.
also offered before, and
Yeah.
that was a little, in my mind, a little too sterile. In my mind.
Yeah, as a regulatory licensing board, that's what we print, licenses. We don't do
And they all look the
certificates.
same, and-
They all look the same, and I'll be
Right.
honest with you, they're actually, for many boards, not even being printed anymore. Wow. The licensee is going to get on their iPhones or on their, a link to it. They can print it or not print it, because depending on the profession, you may not have to post it where you are. You know, your barbers that do your hair have to have it posted, but the rest don't. They don't have to print it because our online system lets us know that when they're active, when they did their contract license, whatever. So we're not even going to be printing those here in the very near future.
And this goes back historically, just for what it's worth, when the licensing law first came in the 60s. And so many people did not have any college education at that time. So their wall was not full of sheepskins. So when they got this license and it went on the wall, a lot of offices that I've been in over the years, that's the only picture that's on the wall is their
Absolutely.
license.
Yep. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, these are, almost every surveyor frames them, and it's
It's a big thing.
It's a source of
It's an
pride.
accomplishment.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah. And it's included in the fees that they pay with their examination and so forth. It's a post-examination fee. Is that fair, Cody?
Yep, so we need to get that back up and running. Okay, so I trust,
I will definitely,
care.
just
Thank
by October, you'll definitely have an answer, and we'll move on that one way or the other. Absolutely.
I think that covers the issue there, wall certificates. Next item, we want to touch base on the review of the NCAAS annual meeting. I think the last board meeting we had, I think we did touch base on our trip up to Indianapolis and the things we accomplished there, but there has been another development since then that I do want to touch base with, and Galen, maybe you can help me out on this. Tim has a somewhat of a prestigious nomination, I would put it. He has been asked to run for the Assistant Zone Vice President for the Southern Zone, of which we're represented with. And what we'd like to do is as a board collectively, just post a motion and get that through the works in favor and supporting Tim in his nomination, such that we can submit that up to NCAAS.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Motion? How about a second?
A second.
And a second, all right. So we have a motion and a second. I don't think we need any further discussion. I think we're very, very aptly comfortable with this nomination here. So all those in favor, I'll take a voice vote. Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
And I'll make one comment after thank you, is that to the best of anyone's knowledge, there has been no one from the state of Tennessee serve in any elected office in NCAAS since the 1930s.
Wow. Change that. So hopefully that's the first step in getting that changed. Congratulations.
Absolutely, that is just fantastic. The meeting that we had in Indianapolis for the NCAAS, that was in August. So I believe the last time this board met was in July. So on the
Okay,
record,
my bad.
yeah, we
I
haven't
think
done an
Craig just had a
update.
conversation.
If the board wants to give an update on it for the record, for anyone that wasn't able to attend, I'll definitely,
Most important thing I would like to say, Ms. Roxanne, is I can't tell you personally how much I appreciate you and Miss Laura and Cody
yeah.
coming to the meeting. It's the most representation that our board has ever had at any NCAAS meeting ever since we've been a member. Period. There's no question about that. And I know that, I feel like that you all enjoyed it. I think you garnered a lot of information. You got to meet a lot of folks that do the same thing that you all do. And I think you have a much greater appreciation for NCAAS now, as each of us members have, having been to these meetings for so long. So it's a great resource, and we're glad to have it. But sincerely, from me personally, and I know from the board, we really appreciate y'all attending. I hope you'll get opportunity to come back again, because there's always a lot to learn and lots of folks to meet.
oh, I think all three of us, we commented when we were together, when we got back, we really learned a lot. It was beyond what we, I think, expected. It gave us an opportunity, me especially being brand new to what you're doing, to not only get a chance to meet and chat with each of you, but to see the classes and take it all in and see the growth potential of the industry. And that's one of the things that, I really want to keep going with. So, no, it was wonderful. Absolutely. Thank you.
It's quite an event, of course, not just covering the country here, but internationally. Of course, the representatives from all over the world there, and to see not only the differences that we have, but especially the similarities, I think is what helps me the most, is to see that other people struggle the same way we do, or have accomplishments similar to what we have. And, so much in our profession, our rules and regulations, although they are different for each state, there's so much that other states are doing where we want to be. And it's so helpful to be able to come together and share those ideas and how did you accomplish things and like that. And the value was just immeasurable, I think. And to have you all there with us was just great. So we hope you all had a good time.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, anything further on that?
Just one other item from Ms. Roxanne. What will be our situation relative to the Southern Zone meeting in the Virgin Islands, as far as the state goes?
And I think we had a question about you being able to attend, Mr. Kaufman. So, and Laura reminded me, they voted to deal with those regional meetings and address that at the meeting in Indiana. So we'll have to look back, because now that we don't have a contract with them, I believe that it includes being able to send at least one board member, correct? So if we know that that's the case, and we know, that Mr. Kaufman's interested in going and the board agrees to vote for him to go, then I think that's the way it's written now.
Between last meeting and this meeting, we executed a memorandum of understanding between the board, which Roxana signed on behalf of the board, and with NCWS. And it was modeled directly after the same agreement that the engineers had, because they had that memorandum of understanding, and so now we're in the same boat as them. So I think we should be fine pending any other issues, but as far as that goes, I think we should be fine.
And along those same lines, I believe at the NCWS meeting there in Indianapolis, there was a motion that I think was voted in favor for to allow up to 3 delegates now from each of the member boards, as opposed to it's always been 2 in the past.
That's correct.
To be fully funded by NCWS, if I'm saying that correctly. I certainly hope I'm saying that correctly. I don't want to misspeak on that. In which case, that would allow 3 members to be funded through NCWS, hopefully at little to no cost to the state, is what I'm hoping.
And I remember it definitely being 1, and I remember the 3 members going. I just don't remember if it was that all the fees are paid by them or not. So we can look at that without a doubt. We can put it off to the October vote, or we can vote to definitely, as the 1 representative that we know is covered, vote for Mr. Kaufman to go, and then look at the fact that 3 could attend. And what's the exact date for the meeting? Oh, so we've got some time.
Yeah.
Good.
We have time, however, if you, I don't know if you attended the zone meeting or not, they indicated in the zone meeting that they were going to probably be doing some early registrations and different things because of where it's at. So it would be nice if, before our next meeting, if you have the opportunity, to investigate that and see what that scenario is, so we could sort of pre-vote for however it needs to be handled a little bit more in advance than usual, just simply because of what the NCWS had asked about.
Okay. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think we can take a motion to, if it's covered by the new contract agreement with NCWS, be able to send all 3?
We can make a motion to do that. I don't know that
Pending.
I can speak to the funding of that, but we can
Yeah.
make a motion that pending any extraneous issues related to funding that we'll send all 3 members, and then when we come back in same month, on the 27th, that's something that we can have kind of sorted out a little bit.
Because what they passed out at the zone meeting, they wanted to make sure that all the funded delegates were on board by February 1. That's the paper that they handed out to us. So we just wanted to make sure that we were in conformance, because this one's a little different than normal for them, and they're trying to do a few more things in
Ahead.
advance.
They were very gracious to us last time because of the changeover. We missed their deadline considerably. They were very nice to accommodate us. So it would be great to go ahead and do
Patient
everything
with
we
us,
can.
because by the time we ran late, they really ran late getting our stuff. So they were wonderful to work with. So the way that Laura has voiced it, if the board does want to vote this time, we can start the process. I'll review as far as the finance, or you can wait. I think either way, we still have the time. We're definitely going to look at, because I took notes on the same thing, but the finance piece, the only thing in the back of my brain that isn't clear. But that's amazing. I mean, if they will pay for up to 3 board members.
So, if I understood it correctly.
The language was a minimum of 3.
Let's put it this way. Let's go ahead and I'll make the motion that we do whatever is taken. Steps need to be taken to
All 3.
sending the 3 delegates that NCAAS will fund. And if you find out anything by the next meeting here in October, fine. If not, that will already be in process.
I'll second that motion.
Motion second. Further discussion? All right, by voice vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion approved. All right, hopefully, if things work out, we can hear a little update on that on the next meeting there. If not, because of logistics, that's fine as well. Okay, there were 2 other items under new business. I'm going to ask that we table those to the next meeting. That was the application process, Public Chapter 1053, and also discussion on drones used in surveying and mapping. I'm going to ask that we just move those to the next agenda for the end of the October meeting. Is that okay, Cody? When you make the, great, okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I might ask Ms. Roxanne, on 1053,
Yes.
was the deadline the end of the year? There was some type of deadline that we needed to address about 1053.
Neither one of us, Laura or I, are
Okay.
at
I
all.
just didn't want to make sure
Yeah.
that we missed it.
Was that something that was covered at the July meeting?
Right to earn a living.
Yes.
It is?
Right to earn a living.
Oh,
Yeah, you remember that thing?
sorry.
Laura
Right,
remembers
yes.
that thing.
I wasn't, okay. Right to earn,
Oh, thank you.
that was what we had updated you guys on, and
Right.
we just wanted to keep you informed, but I don't think that there is any burden on the board specifically. The burden, I think, right now at least, is more on the department to
Okay.
work with the legislature.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any new developments yet. I know that we have our policy people kind of reviewing all of our regulations, and we just want to keep you guys updated because, I mean, they are reviewing the professions and determining what's necessary and what's not necessary, but there's nothing new since July. The legislature hasn't required us to turn over any of that information as of yet, but I'm sure before the next legislative session, there will be an update about that.
Has there been any contact to the board staff here in regards to this, in terms of, yeah, we're in the process of going through your regulations, any kind of questions of any kind, or do we know if there's been any active action on this?
And your question is to the board staff?
Yes,
Or the
to
public?
the
Okay,
staff,
so because it's a public chapter, anyone that received email notifications, and so we'll walk Ms. Summerford through it. If you go to the main website, tn.gov, and you get to the regulatory boards and you find our board or whichever board, under the contact information, you'll see Get Notified. That is a way to sign up for email notifications. This public chapter, along with every unique chapter to each profession, went out as an email blast. So everyone in the board offices received this because it affected every board. So the 33 got it. Anyone in the public that signed up for it got it. And then, of course, as Laura said, internally, certain folks are looking at everything that they need to present by the end of the year, I believe, to review. So there's nothing specific to this board other than we've communicated with all boards that that passed. It kind of has you look at what it is that we regulate, how are we meeting the health and safety of the public, and all those questions. But nothing new. So now I'm on board. The numbers stopped meaning anything.
All right, the other item we had here, the drones used in surveying and mapping, I think we all can agree that that can be tabled to the next meeting, end of October. Okay, very good. Okay, all right. With that being said here, I do want to jump back on the agenda and bring up the topic of the Tennessee State Specific Exam, which really was the basis of why we called this meeting here. It's just kind of in a dynamic period right now, that particular exam, the State Specific Exam, because of the evolution of how the FS and PS exams have now gone computer-based. There is a drive to look at or relook at the Tennessee State Specific Exam, which we've already touched base on this morning with the contract of the test generation and proctoring of. But we want to kind of take a little more in-depth look at it. I'll be quite honest with you, I'm not aware of an update to the Tennessee State Specific Exam for quite some time. Although, of course, we rely on our contractor, Peter, to, of course, generate that exam and those questions and things like that under our guidance. But it needs a good kind of step back and look at and make sure that we're covering the basis for, 2016, 2017. Is it still applicable? How is it administered? And how are we going to, more importantly, how are we going to go forward with this exam? Because the whole testing procedure is changing. So I wanted to just kind of bring this out on the table for discussion. Tim was very kind enough to kind of bring up just kind of a list of topics, just kind of throw out there in terms of the exam, such as the content, the administration, cost, things like that. And so just kind of want to throw it out here, Tim, if you want to start off with item number 1 and kind of see where you were going with it, and we can kind of run from there.
Okay, let's work in a little bit different order here if we can. And the reason I want to do this is to help Miss Betsy kind of get a better feel for the exam process. What I've got is a little bit out of sequence, but I think I can take the same piece of paper and sequence it a little bit better to try to help her have a better understanding of what we do, how we do it, and then it'll be hopefully more comfortable for her to understand why we want to tweak a few things, both for the board, the examinee, and the department. So let's start down on the miscellaneous exam items. Currently, item number 1, the FS exam, I say with no prior approval of the board. Currently, our FS exam, we have the applicant submit an application to us. We approve that application, and once that application is approved, they are notified, and NCWS is notified, and that applicant, and you correct me if I say this wrong, Cody, that applicant then can apply to NCWS because they've been basically given permission. NCWS then allows them to take that examination 3 times within a 12-month period, which that begins whenever they take the first exam. In other words, if we approved them today and they didn't take it till January, that's when their 12-month begins. So what a vast majority of the jurisdictions that give the NCWS FS examination have went to what they call no prior approval, which basically, in a nutshell, and I'm sure I'm beating a dead horse here a little bit, but in a nutshell, that means that John or Jane Doe will actually apply directly to NCWS, and they will be allowed to take the examination. It doesn't mean that we're certifying them to anything or anything else, but what we have to do is, Ms. Roxanne, you as the director, has to notify NCWS that we in Tennessee no longer want to approve our candidate before they take the exam. Okay? Now, that does not ensure that candidate of getting to what we call LSIT status, because they will have to apply post passing the examination. Does that make any sense?
Oh, yeah.
And this is what most of the jurisdictions across the country are doing, just as a way of keeping things moving.
And other professions, I think, do it as well. It's we're not giving you anything yet, but if you think you meet the criteria, you've done the education, you've looked at the rules and laws, you're going to be given this permission to test, and then after you pass the exam, so hopefully it's saving you some time, then we're going to look at the whole thing. Yes.
So on that particular item, we can discuss further, the chair's pleasure if he wants a motion or whatever. But I mean, to me, the end result is the same. It's just we're going around the barn in a different direction.
Is the board inclined to agree to follow that? If
I certainly think we're getting there.
Okay.
I used to really struggle with this. My first mindset on it was absolutely no, and back and forth. But then I started thinking about it. I'm like, why? Why do we delay the applicant the opportunity to take the exam? Of course, a lot of that is changed now that it's computer-based, but it was a significant factor when it was only offered twice a year. It really was. But now being computer-based, it's not as much of a factor. But I have changed my mind quite a bit to the point of, well, why? Why do we wait? They really don't, there's no reason for us to hold a candidate back just for approval of a paper application, checking things like that. So I'm more in favor of it. Before I want to jump into it and say let's go there, I think we probably need to look at the rules and regulations that we have in place right now to see that they comply with it, and that if there are rules that we need to change, that we get that in process. Now, I know that can be a lengthy process as well, but I think at some point, number one, I don't want to be in violation of any statute or rule that we have because of some technicality based on what I'll call old school way of doing it. I want to make sure that we do it in the right procedure, the right way. We're not violating anything, thus jeopardizing the candidate's potential licensure. We certainly don't want to do that. But I do want to encourage this board that we start the process, because I personally am of the mindset now that we need to pursue this. Other states are doing it. I think it's for the benefit of the candidate, and there's really no logistical reason to hold them back, I don't think.
The only
And
negative.
we're talking about the FS only.
Right, the only negative I can see in the FS is because of the nature of the different scenarios that an individual qualifies to do the licensing path.
Right.
There's the potential that an individual could take the examination and pass it, and it may be several years before they're ever able to apply to go to the next step. That's the only negative I see. However, in some regards, that's a positive because obviously the younger you are, maybe the more knowledge that you may potentially maintain, specifically relative to an FS examination, because it's entry-level knowledge. So, you know, as you progress, and this is the thing that we found at NCWS, is the PS exam is not near as troublesome as the FS, because the FS is all the basics. It's all that preliminary stuff that you learned way back when, okay? Whereas the FS is more practice-oriented, and you're doing it every day. So you're much more comfortable with that. So the same negative I could see as a positive. For someone, for example, if they were going the high school route for our licensure, if they got it, say, right out of high school or first year of a associate degree or whatever, they went ahead and took it, they passed it, but it still might be whatever that timeline is before they can go to the next level. So, I agree with Jay. I just want to make sure we don't break no rules, and I want to make sure that I feel like it's a overall positive that we can offer the applicant to move them along. Plus, on the other side of the coin is, that is an application that then you won't have to touch until it's real. Sure. And actually, the only reason you'll be touching that application is for us to actually give them their LSIT certification. Because from when they pass the examination, that starts the meter going to the next step. If they have everything in order when they apply.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So that's what I was looking at. That's the first step in easing your all's process.
I think it's fantastic. So Laura's reading as we speak. I don't think there's anything. She'll be the best judge, but we're going to start in that mode. So whether we have that final answer by the end of October or may not have, but we'll look and make sure it doesn't clash with anything. I know it's being done in, like you said, other states. The fact that you all are kind of looking at that, I think is great, because if they pass it right out of high school, I think you've got that key person when you talk about that high school young person that just learned it and is excited and motivated. It's fresh. And if they're a good test taker and they pass right then, they, now can focus on the other things instead of delaying it or changing paths.
I have a question, actually. I'm sorry. So when we talk about sending people straight to examination before application, are we talking about both parts, both the FS and the? So just the FS. Okay. So
They're working on that process for the PS.
Yeah,
as
there
well.
is discussion on PS. I don't know that we're at that comfort level quite yet, but one step at a time.
well, that's kind of what I thought, because there's nothing in the rules that would stop the board, that would be improper for the board to send someone straight through for the FS. The problem is right now the rules are written in such a way where the tests are sort of spoken about as like a group. So, I think it would be prudent to clarify that we're treating these tests differently.
And that's what we're looking, for some of your guidance to do, is to say, look, it's not that easy. We're going to need to make a change. Here's a suggestion to the clarification, and hopefully we can, get some clarification on what's the procedure to get that done. Whether it's a quick way or a long way, whatever, we just need that kind of understanding.
Well, there's usually both. There could be a quick way, and that, I don't think we're breaking any any statutes if we decide to start partitioning them out. But that always has to be followed up by, it should be clear in the rules. So even if we're doing something that's not against our rules, if we think there's a way we can be very clear, then we should be working towards that. But rulemaking takes a while, as you know. So, but I did review the statutes. There's definitely nothing in the statutes that would keep you from sending someone straight through to exam. And then there's nothing really in the rules. It just, now the way the rules were written, they're written to address just both exams in one way. So that was not the clearest answer, but that's where we're at.
Well, it's encouraging, isn't it, to say the least. It's certainly
Okay.
encouraging. So it sounds like there may be an avenue there. But definitely, I think we need to get a comfort level with a little more time, maybe a little more study and research on all our parts. And we'll certainly be looking to you for some guidance on that, Laura, for that. But I certainly want to encourage that we try to get there. I think it's a positive course and a benefit to the applicants, which certainly would eliminate or at least minimize any kind of delay toward their potential licensure, which is where we want to get them. So,
Well, Ms. Laura, if I may, if I recall correctly, at our last meeting, we were presented proposed rules filing form relative to this particular section that it addresses examinations. And we agreed to, at that time, to table it because the bad board member, being me, had a whole bunch of changes and corrections to it. And part of those changes and corrections were exactly what we're talking about. So in my mind, we have what we need on the table. We just need to go back to work on it. Because, we were trying to clean up the fees that no longer apply, et cetera, and along with other things. And
Yeah, I removed that section that you wanted
Right.
to table, and then
Right.
went ahead and sent the other rules through.
Right.
And then, I'm assuming that we're gonna have to draft a new rulemaking,
Well,
or probably a rulemaking hearing as opposed to proposed rules.
let me say this. We've been kind of all over the perspective in the last eight years relative about how we do propose rules. The most successful time that we have had over that period of time has been when we have actually taken the proposed rule document like you provided for us, and we actually sat down and discussed it line by line, and we redlined it. And then the attorney at that time, which was not you prior, would then bring it back to us, and we would look at it again, and then that process would actually move forward in the normal routine process that it does.
That is still how it should be done. The other rulemaking hearings that I asked you guys to vote on were sort of already in process. So I tried to just pick them up where I felt they had been
Right.
left off. But yes, I'm intending to figure out what it is exactly we wanted to change. You wanted to talk about changing fees. And then once I have an idea of what you're looking for, then I can draft language, email it to everyone, and then everyone can either come to a meeting with their corrections, notes, what have you, or email them to me if they want me to just work on them before a meeting. But I haven't drafted that yet because I'm not entirely sure what I should be drafting yet, so.
Well, like I say, this is an important section because primarily of the changes that we're currently going through with the FS and PS going to CBT. And I'm sorry, Miss Betsy, of using all the acronyms.
Oh,
If
I've
I-
already looked them up, so I'm
if
following
you need
along.
any help, just holler. But I'm used
Okay.
to using them.
Sure,
So
no.
so I get in that mode. But however you want to approach it, Miss Laura, is perfectly fine with me. But this is the section that directly ties to exactly what we're going to finish discussing here in a little while. That we need to marry them up, and then hopefully it'll make everybody's life better, the applicant, the board, and the staff. I mean, that's my goal.
Okay. So my intent then is gonna be to draft rules that would allow, that would make it clear that for the FS, you can take before applying, but the TS is still after applying.
Well,
Or would you want it to be open-ended so we can move with the times? Okay.
I think the latter statement is more correct because we don't know 5 years from now how NCAAS may treat the whole situation. And I would rather be a little bit more forward-thinking than being restrictive. And in Jay's box.
And then as far as the fees that you wanted to change,
I'll just give you my markup, if that's okay. I mean, if that's all right, I mean. Because I marked it up the last time, and it may not be 100%, but it's fairly close. That way, we won't have to necessarily discuss that in this other discussion, if that's okay. Okay. Okay, the next item on miscellaneous was the PS exam taken after the state specific. I think that's going to become the norm, potentially, because the reason being is when we approve a candidate to take the PS and the TS, it's then up to them to register for the PS. And the registration is relative to available seat time at a CBT site. So that may come before or after they actually take our state-specific examination. So I just wanted to mention that because that's a little bit different scenario than we're used to, because PS is CBT, but I see no harm in it, whichever way, because we've had applicants for years that would pass the state-specific and not pass the PS, and then they would take it 2 more times or whatever and then pass it. So I just wanted to make sure that, just throw that out there. So I don't see any issue with that.
No, I have no issue with it, and my reasoning was the same. It's been happening for years,
Right.
just through a different mechanism.
Okay. The next item there is out-of-state applicant frequency. That actually goes back to a discussion we had before relative to whether or not we wanted to accommodate what would be considered comedy or reciprocity type applicants in a different manner than we do regular applicants. And I think that falls a lot into place with how we end up discussing the exam administration for the state specific. Obviously, the big reason about the state specific conversation is because of what we just talked about with Mr. Driver about an upcoming RFP, because we're going to have to discuss it on a high intelligent level with him so that he gets all the stuff right before he ships it out to potential vendors. Let's hold on that one for just a minute. I'm going to go to number 4, which I think is Roxanne's favorite, is streamlining the application process. I think we're starting to do that. We started about 1.5 years ago trying to tweak our exam forms, and I don't feel like we ever got finished. Do you, Jay?
No, we certainly brought the topic up. We did have some light review. Nicole certainly was involved in it. She was making some very substantial progress on trying to kind of condense. There were some questions in there that were kind of redundant. There were some in there that were kind of like, well, why do we even ask this? But then there were some that were like, how come we're not asking these kind of questions? And she did submit to us a couple of drafts that I can recall. I don't just offhand recall any that were finalized. Okay, this is the final new application as it is. I know a lot of it went online, which I think is what kind of was the genesis of why we need to update these applications. But I do think that we as board members, the 4 of us, do need to sit down and as if we were applying for licensure, and to see and kind of review it. In today's world, are these relevant questions? Why do we ask these questions? Or why don't we ask other questions? And that we feel like it is a thorough application for the potential surveyor. Because again, I want every advantage that we can give the applicant to be able to sit down in the seat and take that exam. And if there's something in those applications that is a stumbling block of some sort, that does not go directly to the benefit of that applicant, I want to know why. And so I think, especially with all that's going on with now the CBT exams going on, now that we're taking over the Tennessee State specific exam, that now is an excellent opportunity to sit down as if I was an applicant and go through the process and say why or why not. Is there anything you want to add to that?
I just want to ask Cody a question. Is the application as on our website, is it completely fillable out on the website and submittable from where it's filled out? Because a young man asked me about it the other day up home, and he said, I'm glad you got your application online. It's easy for me to find. I can fill it out, but I've got to print it, and then I've got to scan it and send it in. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, if we put it online, how come it's not, you can fill it out and push a button and submit it?
You got two answers.
Okay.
The first is that the paper application that's available on the website So if you navigate to Forms and Download section, and you select the PLS or PLSIT application, you have to print those out and you have to fill them out by hand. Now, the new applications that we make are fillable from your computer, but these are essentially photocopies from the Donna days, which we do not have the capability to make them fillable. But on the other hand, we have our new online licensing site, core.tn.gov, where you create an account and that paper application has been transcribed to the online format. We have not had an applicant use that to date. It's been live not that long, but now you can apply completely online.
And we talked about this at the meeting that Kimberly and I attended. So yes, we haven't had it online, but it literally, you start by registering, get a temporary password, you get through your email, that password back to you, you log in, and it starts, but it mimics what the paper version used to have. So I think it's still worthwhile if the board wants to review. What are we asking? Are we asking something that isn't needed? Are we asking too many things, and do we have to based on code? You know, sometimes we ask just because we want to know, and I've been told this at different board meetings, well, we want to know. And then the question is, do we really need it? Because everything they answer, we have to put somewhere in our database, if that makes sense. So for collections and financial boards, that makes sense. That number's got to go somewhere. We basically have to know from the four of you, where is that data going to go? What's it related to? Because then it can be asked in a public records request. And so just with that in mind, I think we review the paper, knowing that tomorrow we could pull that paper off the internet completely, so our applicants are only applying online. I mean, it starts, you put your social all the way to the end, and it takes the fee for whatever that application fee is.
I would make the assumption here that that's eventually where we're being
I've
led
pulled
to
several in one of my boards and just said they're not going to use the online system because my board does, just isn't. So unless I pull the paper, and everybody in the office and in customer service and everywhere, we say you can only apply online. And that's what we've kind of forced it to do. And it's gone well. Some picked the wrong category. I don't think our surveyors will, right? They know what they're coming in to do. Whereas in other industries, it's, I didn't realize I was reciprocity or comedy. I really thought I was within Tennessee. I think these folks will know and pick that because that choice that they make early on determines the fee structure. It determines what we call a transaction. It kind of ties them into our system as to what it is they're coming in to do. But I think with more education as we're doing, there's a video now there for them to register, and a video on how to complete the application process. And so when the board has tweaked the paper, if you will, and we can do that starting the next meeting, then we go into the technology side and make sure that the questions are changed. Whatever you say that magical 1, 2, 10 questions need to be, we change them to what the applicant answers all the way to the end. They get that receipt from their credit card. They can pay it with a debit card or credit card. They know they're done. They know we have it, and we literally have it within minutes.
Cody, did I understand you correctly that right now the applicant goes and download, under the forms, they download the paper application, manually fill it out, excuse me, print it, manually fill it out, return it back to the board, and then somebody transcribes that information?
The way it works.
That seems kind of redundant. Here we are talking about streamlining.
Well, that's why we're going to, we
this
can
is-
pull it whenever we want, yeah.
This is a pretty amazing process as it stands right now. So if I'm an applicant, I go to the website. I have the option of either applying online or printing out the paper application.
You said nobody has applied online yet? Did I understand
Yeah,
that
we
right?
haven't had anyone
Nobody?
do
Okay.
that.
All right.
But and you said it is still fairly new, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
we
very,
have
very,
not
very new.
pushed it. We
Yeah.
need to put it on the newsletter. We need to.
I'm not sure anybody realizes it. Now, people are renewing using
Yes.
that system quite a bit, and we've advertised that and pushed them towards that because it's so much easier and eases our administrative burden. But for the paper application, you print it out, you fill it out by hand, you mail it in, the mailroom gets it, scans it into the computer, and that's how I get it.
And then we key in certain data from it ourselves, as opposed to you putting in your right name, your right date of birth, all those vitals. You would really, as the licensed, the applicant would be doing them online. So you're sort of taking our work away, which is perfectly fine. We are fine
Never
with
heard
that.
that complaint.
It's coming in so much faster. You know that it's accurate. There's no typo to the suite number. I mean, from little things to big things. The paper's not coming in, getting scanned. You can just imagine the volume that the building gets. So yes, when we spoke at the meeting, that was the big push. I think it's an educational thing more than anything else. But again, if we take out the paper once the board's reviewed the questions and we know the online system is accurate, that every question is going to look right, that we did, that it's going to, in their minds, read correctly. The other plus that the online site has, when you open that page, it tells you at the top. Now, it can give you kind of vision of make sure to look at the rules and laws, make sure to know that when you take this exam. So we can give them that heads up that in the paper world you couldn't kind of give those caveats. So it really is very helpful.
Right. Well, it sounds encouraging. It sounds like that's where we're trying to get to. But for right now, I'm going to ask each of the members of the board here that before our next meeting here in a couple of weeks, that each of us go over the application process. Are we talking about just the which exam are we talking about specific, or all the applications?
Right now, we only have two, right?
Correct.
Should be just two, yeah.
Both are the same way.
Okay, and I think many of the
Both need
questions are
updating.
probably identical, I would imagine, on both the applications.
There's a lot
I'm
of
gonna ask-
overlap.
Yeah, I'm going to ask that the members of the board here take some time to review those applications, come back here in a couple weeks with either questions or comments, additions, deletions, suggestions, things like that. And then hopefully we can come to a consensus on those, perhaps get a modification to the exam process, all leading up to, hopefully, eventually, the streamlining to the online application process, which we need to get to. And,
Absolutely.
and the only thing holding it back is us, quite honestly.
I mean,
as
it's
board
just,
members.
it's just like if I work for Jay and Jay gives me an employer verification, he also gives me a reference. Well, that's redundant, and it's actually asking Jay to sign the paper twice, and we don't need to do that.
Correct.
We need to, those are some little things that we just need to separate. And again, going back to what I talked about earlier, when we talked about problematic areas, that helps clean that up. It makes it much clearer, particularly to us. You can see that the blanks are filled out, but we can see the information we want in a much clearer format, so we can move forward.
Absolutely. The data online, if they complete it, is night and day to us doing it. You'll see it. We'll bring you samples of what an application would look like in that technical world. But I think once you look at the two applications, all of you you'll mark, okay, these are the same. I've already changed it once. Bring them over. We will duplicate that process. And then changing them won't take that long. It really won't. That'd be great.
Okay, I guess the top item, exam content, probably the greatest thing there of all of those items is how our board is going to be able to work with the new vendor relative to the state-specific examination. That's probably the best question that I can ask, because all of those things are within that one question. It's my understanding that we as a board can't work with the vendor unless the vendor's sitting right there and that television is on. That's my understanding, and I have real heartburn over that personally. I'm sorry.
And by vendor, do you mean look at the questions, or do you just mean, because you're going to review, if this goes out for bid, you're going to review the contracts, you can, that's not the piece you're discussing.
Well,
Not the contract. I think he's
Well,
more talking about the
well,
content.
let me say this.
You mean the questions? So of course, we all know that the questions
Okay.
are not open to the public, right?
Okay.
They can't be.
Well, but that's part of the problem because
yeah.
of our public meetings and so forth. In the existing contract that Mr. Messier has, in two locations on the very first page, it says, the bank of items may be revised from time to time during the contract period as required in order to comply with changes in the law, rules or procedures, or as directed by the board. Bottom line is, if the board don't know what the questions are, how can we direct? As we move on, in another item, it says, all items shall be subject to review and approved by the board prior to their use on any examination. Okay? We can't sit here and talk about question 12
Correct.
because,
Absolutely.
because we're given the answer to the
Well,
examinee.
Absolutely.
So I mean, that's why my question is
Right,
because to my knowledge, we are the only board in this building that has a exam that we write and we administer ourselves. Now, I'm not talking about, there's other boards here I know that administer examinations, but I'm not aware of any other boards that actually write that exam and administer it.
Well, every board has an input on the questions for their profession. So every board. So last week I spent a full week in a hotel with our vendor reviewing exam questions. Exactly what you just read, I did. So I represented the office, if you will, to make sure that we had, no one argued, that we got through, that the things that we came up with made sense, that all that kind of thing.
But this was in a subject that you were an expert in.
Well, it's not my field, right?
Okay.
I'm just like here. This
Okay.
isn't my field, but I hopefully can help you make some business decisions. Same thing. We had one board member and only one representing the board at every single day. So Monday and Tuesday, I had a board member for the barber side, and Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I had a cosmetology board member. The rest of the individuals in that meeting were respected individuals from the industry that are the experts, that are knowledgeable, that I know our board would trust, that we didn't have complaints against, you name it, right? And I know this industry would have those, that are volunteering their time. And we are looking at the questions. We are reviewing the good questions. We're reviewing, and by good is, if 100% of our candidates got that question, it's not testing anything. We want it out. We're reviewing the bad ones, where everybody got number 4, and it was a good distraction, but too good because they all got it, and it's not the right answer. Got to come out. We wrote some questions because we needed a little bit more. If we needed to write more because we were short, then that would have been time. Literally 8 to 5, that is what we did. The board's members never saw each other because then it's an open meeting. We can't jeopardize our database of questions. And we came up with brand new questions, and the board approved it because this person that represented the board was there. So they are approved. We are following the statute. We're not violating anything. They are comfortable with entrusting this person to go make that decision. So also the other piece, you don't really want all those questions open to discussion and review by everybody. I know we have, you sign the conflict of interest and they wouldn't come out, but that's a lot of gambling to look at your database of historical questions from 5 years at an open table. If these questions have been working, we can take over from them and develop more, because I know you mentioned we don't have a strong, big enough database to go on into technology and use the computer base. I would never want to see all the questions. I wouldn't want one of our board members, because that's just a lot of information. We want that to be a good test that can be defensible. So we're really at that point only looking at making changes, adding, fixing things, and moving forward. If it was a brand new exam, then that'd be a little bit different. But this would be probably similar. We'd want to maybe write some more, vote a board member to go, and entrust who in the industry would the board be comfortable inviting to participate in this.
Is it fair to say that the individuals being there are being their own psychometricians?
Yeah, I mean, they are their own, they're signing a conflict of interest that nothing's going to leave that room. They're looking for what's best for the industry and the future licensees.
But that board member is probably going to see the whole
They
bank.
need to, they're picked because they've got to see no one's seeing the whole database, not at all. So in those 3 days, we only addressed 159 questions for one profession, 55 for another. So we're not looking at the whole database because it isn't all problematic. We're only looking at changes and adding some more. If you started at 0, then you'd be creating all the questions.
Again,
No.
help me with this. I'm thick-headed sometimes. I'm sorry.
Don't be.
But I'm trying to wrap my arms around how you're not being your own psychometrician if you're not looking at the entire bank, so that you're able to pick and choose the questions that are strong, or too strong, or too weak.
So in this case, Mr. Messier has those questions, right?
Yes.
Okay, so he has a way to analyze, are all those questions, are they decent? And decent means are 70% or so passing those questions. That's what our baseline with PSI is 70% or so passing. And if the question is, if the answer is we've got between 50 to 75 passing, we're good with that question. I don't need to see it. Nobody needs to see it if that question is considered decent and it's passing. We only need to see and fix and correct the other two extremes, and we need to decide. And that was one board member representative, myself. I had someone else from my team come with me, and then these people that are volunteering from the industry. We need to decide, do we have enough questions for this type of exam that's computer-based, that everybody in the room needs to have a different version? Do we have enough? And fortunately, we happen to have enough, but in one of the professions, we didn't. The group is going to write more questions, but we don't need to look at all of them if many of them are testing okay. So I don't think in this case we would be on the same. We don't need to look at all of them. If Mr. Messier, that's been doing this for so many years and doing a great job, can say we're testing okay, we're between this 50 and 70%, but we've got 5 questions here and these 15 that aren't testing anything. Everybody passed it. Take it out. Those are the questions that this group will be dissecting and meeting and reviewing and then deciding, wait a minute, if we go computer-based, we don't have enough. We need to write 30 questions. This group that is put together, one board member, myself, Cody, whatever the magical number is, we sit in a room, and it's exhausting, 8 hours, 3 days, 5 days, however many, and we come up with the questions, take out the bad ones. In this particular, we have to cite them in the book. You'd have to refer them to where are they there. The book got edited. I mean, that is a process every profession does go through. I just lived it. It was a long week. But it is extremely rewarding, I mean, you see the immediate, this is why we're doing this. And that's how they get around not sitting together in a room and knowing all the questions. None of them want to know all the questions. They'll all tell you that because they're in the industry. So, but the one that's trusted, when they leave, that's it. It's erased. It's gone. I did my job.
You mentioned you had one of the board members there. Was it the same board member for the entire length?
No.
So it rotated?
We didn't rotate. I had one that did their profession. In this case, it was the day that it affected them, it was one board member. You all could decide to rotate. I mean, you could, without a doubt. We didn't do it that way because of the expertise that you needed. But you could rotate because it is very tiring. You may have 1 or 2 board members that's your thing. Education is your strength, and you're willing to sacrifice because it is. It's a lengthy process. Or you could rotate all 3. You know, we can come up with that magical number, and we can do it in this building. I mean, all of that is, in this particular case, the vendor paid for their time, their lodging, all that kind of thing. Not my board members or mine, but the volunteers that in essence are coming to help improve this.
Kind of touching base on this, I'm trying to visualize if, whenever we get a new vendor, whether it's Peter or not, just trying to visualize if we were to have a session like this. Was that covered, or was a session like that covered under the contract? Or similar to last time, I think Peter's last visit here, his expenses were not covered under his contract. Correct. It would be, and that was handled another way, but is that something that's handled in the contract? Kind of going off on a tangent a little bit.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I'd have to look at the contract to see if it is or not. I mean, it is one of those things as we look at what we're doing next that I think has to be in there. How often does this board need to or want to review? In a big board like cosmetology, we review it every 2 years. I mean, we have to review the ups and downs, the trends, brand new book edition, how does it affect it? That means rules and laws. The rules and laws are in those questions. Someone needs to look at those and take out if something's been, generally speaking, rules and laws add things or clarify, but on occasion they take out important pieces, and now you're still possibly have the question living there.
I can't think of the last time that the board collectively has initiated a thorough review of the state.
I think Peter said it was 2006 or 7.
Really? Okay.
It was the last time the board.
So basically 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's basically been about 10 years.
And since then, we've had quite a few rules changes and
Right, and he's tried to update them himself, and,
Yep.
which I'm
Exactly.
sure he's done a very good job.
Exactly.
And Ms. Roxanne, I don't mean no disrespect at all, but I don't know if you're aware or not, but it doesn't matter. But I sit on the NCAAS exam committee, and I've been on the PS side, and I'm currently I'm on the PS side, I've been on the FS side also, both writing questions and critiquing and doing exactly what you're talking about. You know, we have psychometricians there and all kinds of good stuff, you know, and other subject matter experts. And it's a different scenario, I realize, because it's outside the realm of, you know, government with sunshine rules and all that type of thing. So it's outside that. And that's the only reason that I asked a lot of those questions, is because, you know, I just want to be able to have in my mind, you know, how we have to handle it within the rules and regulations so that we can move forward, because it's clear to me that we're not doing a bad job, but I always feel like that we can do just a little better. And that's the direction I'm coming from.
That is fantastic. I think that's that's absolutely fantastic. I think, you know, as Kimberly and Michael, they walk us through this next stage and we look at all the different options, we're not starting from a database of zero, right? Those questions that we have with Mr. Mercier are the board's questions. I mean, so we'll have them.
His contract says that when it includes.
Oh, I looked at that. Yeah, no, I looked at that. And so the other piece with that is we will probably also, as part of his contract, know where are those questions? I mean, which ones are good or bad? What do we have to clean up and review? And if he says that he did a review in 2007 or 8 or 9, then at least we know, okay, let's look at the statistics. What is the board comfortable? We're comfortable with everything that tests and at least 50% pass. Then we have a starting point. And I think realistically, we definitely can build in sometime in the near future doing this review. And then the board decides. Do the members rotate each day so everyone gets a feel for it? Do we do, 5, 6 days? How do we break that up to each day to where each one has taken a part, or no, everyone's not interested in doing it. They're not all experts at that. Here's why we move forward. I think it's needed.
Yeah, it definitely is needed. I think we probably need to jump the first hurdle, and I think you're going to agree with me here as to the next vendor, because it's a whole different ballgame if it's a brand new vendor as opposed to if it's Peter. So, so while I'm anxious to get the review process started, and I certainly, I personally want to. I think everyone here wants to review it as well. I think it's much needed. I think we need to get the vendor process stabilized first, get that decision made, and then kind of make a path from there, because that's two completely different ballgames.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, based on what Jay has said, the second category, that's exam administration, that was crafted around the desire for the staff to administer the examination. And I don't feel like now, knowing that we're going to potentially go to another vendor, we're going to a vendor to do this, whether it's Mr. Mercier or somebody else. We will have a vendor.
Correct.
So I think that those may be some things that we may want to discuss, and we can discuss those things openly with the vendor in the public meeting.
Absolutely.
Without giving anything away.
You got it. That's exactly right.
Because those are things that, security and scoring, all that type of thing, we've got that stuff pretty well set up, and they need to know, how we're going to do that, whoever that vendor is. Okay. Exam cost is in the middle. That's what I was talking about with you, Miss Laura, and I'll get you that information in a few minutes. The last thing I think that we should think about, and Jay so aptly mentioned it already, is I think the board should have a copy of Mr. Messier's contract. If they don't, they should have a copy of it, in my opinion, because it's a function of the board. I think it's also public record, I think. And the reason I say that is, before we discuss with Mr. Driver and Kimberly next, I guess it's a RFP, is that right? RFP for a potential vendor starting on March the 31st of next year. I think we need to look at that contract and see if we as a board see any exceptions or changes or just like Jay was mentioning, this meeting for crafting new questions and so forth. Any of those type of things that we need to include so that we can make those folks aware of it and that they can put that in there as part of it. Because I know
Absolutely.
when the last contract we did 5 years ago with Mr. Messier, I was on the board, and we went through some of those parameters. And I will say this just for your edification, the greatest single problem that has happened in the last 5 years with Mr. Messier has been the state's inability to pay on time. That I think if you ask Mr. Messier, he'd be satisfied with everything except that situation. It got so bad one time that he virtually almost quit. Because basically in effect, the state was asking him to bankroll the exam, and it started getting pretty expensive. So, and I know you didn't know anything about that, and I understand it, but I just wanted to
no.
throw that out.
Yeah.
That
That's-
was one of
that's
the
fixable.
largest
Yeah.
problems, because we've went through, we've went through different accounting scenarios with what do you call it, G&A? Is that right? Huh? No, or F&A. That's it. Thank you, F&A. I can't remember all them things. Anyway, F&A, we went through different scenarios, and Edison showed up on the scene and so forth and so on. And so, I feel like that a little bit of that was involved with some of their changes in their process of how they handle things. But at the end of the day, it did get pretty ugly, and I'm sure Mr. Messier would speak to you about it if asked. But I think we finally got that pretty well corrected, and hopefully he's getting, I haven't asked him in a while, but hopefully he's getting things in a more timely basis. Because he has to pay in advance for the
Absolutely.
site and all that type of thing. And what they'd been doing was waiting until his performance for that exam was complete when the exams were turned back in, and then they were paying him, 30, 45, 60 days after that. So if he did an exam in October, he had to pay his fee in September to reserve the site. By the time he turned exams in December, it's March getting his check.
Okay.
Well, he's all of a sudden got $10,000 out, just to pick a number, So that was part of his dismay, and I wanted to share that with you, just to let you know.
No, I
Because
appreciate
obviously
it.
that would be a problem with another vendor.
Right. Now, I can imagine that if you have upfront costs, I can without a doubt, and because part of the fee includes how many exams did you grade, at least if it's the paper world or in his world, if we went with Pearson VUE or PSI, that might be different, right? But at least here, then you're waiting for after the exam to know how many to pay them. So there's a delay automatically there. Why on top of that, there'd be another 45 days that should not be, but
And
so
I
we'll
don't
look
know,
at all
I
that.
don't recall the exact
Yeah.
logistics of it, but the bottom line, it was a problem, and it got bad.
Yeah.
Real bad. He was ready to quit. And that's not good. That's not
No,
good.
no.
Like I say,
No,
it's
there's
just
no
been,
reason.
It's been his personal dedication to the profession and his allegiance to the board through communication, friendship, etc., that he's stayed on through some of these obstacles. So anyway, that's sort of where that's at. Okay, and I mentioned that. That's why I had that on. That's why I had that on there. So if we can get the contract, we go through it. We'll look at it, and we've also talked about the direction and approval on the board items. So that's good. We've pretty well, for the most part, pretty well hit the whole page here, even though we've not talked about several areas specifically. But those areas need to be dealt with once we have another vendor, another direction. But we're just in I think in a good place. I need to say this for Miss Betsy, is that our exam is 3 steps. The second step is the PS, or the Principles and Practices of Surveying. And that step is now, just as of the 3rd day of this month, with Monday of this week, actually went CBT. So we no longer are proctoring it or anything, and an applicant can apply for a seat, and they can take it any day of the year. So, and until they fail it 3 times, we won't see them back. Or if they pass it, we'll know that they passed it. So that's the second step, and then this last step is primarily what all this stuff I've been talking about. It's about how we handle what we do. And obviously, a win-win would be if we could ever get ours to CBT, and they could have a cubicle upstairs in one of the staff's offices, and somebody could come in here, make an appointment with Miss Roxanne or Cody, and come in here and sit down and take it. And then the computer scores it, and they know right then.
Or even better at one of the testing centers.
Yeah.
where they can
Much
go in their
better,
own
much
hometown.
better.
Right.
And that exists. I mean, even
Yeah,
at, in Indianapolis, we heard
Right.
that. I mean, we've got some neighboring states that use Pearson VUE and PSI. They'll take on the smaller professional boards because they're taking on bigger ones that bring in the money, if you will. But they'll be glad to add those in because they're already doing things for the regulatory board. And yeah, then you really don't worry about any part of it. We're kind of outside. We're just waiting for them to apply and go to their next level.
One thing I
Which is
will
great.
mention on the TS exam is, we've also spoken about changing the frequency of the exam to potentially 4 times a year. So we have to be mindful, I think, for all of our exams, more so the PS and TS, about when our board meets and how we can process these applications to keep people moving through so that we're not delaying them, because the exam is now more available than we are.
That's right.
So I think that we need to be mindful of that so that we can help accommodate, and that's part of everything that we've been talking about. But I'm not so sure at the end of the day, and I'm not trying to create work for you all or anybody else, but I'm not sure at the end of the day, it may come to a situation where we need to meet primarily because of applications every other month.
Well,
as
again,
opposed to 4
right.
times a year.
Right, and that's where we're going to see what the system does to us with the applications. We know that that first round for the FS, that's a given. So that's going to work, I think, well with the applications, and that's going to take some of the volume away from the meetings, hopefully. Then how does this process work? What are we going to do the plats in person here, and at that point be in the open meeting for the plats and review everything ahead of time? And those that meet everything, I mean, you're going to have those that did the bachelor's, that it's real clear cut, you've got it, you can approve them. We can put those through to start the exam hopefully sooner than we have in the past, prior to a meeting.
And that's that leads to another question that I had relative to the PS. The application is the same for the PS and the TS. The TS has additional requirements than the PS does. But just as a thought, if we separated the PS application, it may be possible for the board to react quicker than they could on the normal TS application. And I'm just throwing out a thought is all I'm doing, because right now the reason they're embodied together where they were given at the same time. Okay? But now they're no longer given at the same time. The PS is going to be like the FS any day of the year.
Right.
That you can get a seat any day of the year. So once you're approved, you can do that. So I just wonder out loud if we separate that mindset so that the application could be approved for the PS faster, so that applicant can go ahead and get in line and be working, then the TS can be before the board because of all those four items that I listed earlier.
So does the
Again, it's
TS,
just a thought.
the TS is the one that has the plat?
Yes.
So in essence, if we did a separate application and you went to this, on your computer Saturday at 6 o'clock in the morning because you couldn't sleep, you decided to look at these applications and it was all paperwork, no plat, you approved it, that person Monday morning could reserve their seat and take the exam. Am I right?
Because, yes, ma'am, you're right. And the reason I say that is, if you look at our public chapter 714, which basically gives you the roadmap for how an individual gets to take the PS examination and the TS exam, the roadmap's already here. We can't change the roadmap because that's what the law says. So if that PS exam meets this roadmap, or application rather, not exam,
Yeah.
application meets this roadmap, I'm struggling as to why we should hold it up, waiting on a meeting so we can approve it for the PS and the TS at the same time.
I think based on what we demoed today, that was a little bit odd for our meeting structure, but it was so we could see this. If that plat, which is the big piece to our state, and you don't need to see it, and they meet, if they don't meet it, right, it's still, they have to wait till the board meeting, the 3 or 4 of you discuss it, the whole thing. But if they meet everything, you could, in essence, approve them Saturday morning, or Friday. Cody sees it, it goes to the 2 people approve them, and they could have the go to reserve their seat and test on the next date in Memphis. There'd be no reason, then why not, right? Am I missing something?
I just went through something very similar with the geology board, where they had 1 application, 2 exams, but one of the exams, the first exam, the fundamentals exam, did not need all of the requirements, or about half of that application. So we put I created a new form specifically for that first exam. We didn't advertise it, didn't do anything. We just posted it to the website. And on Friday, we had double the examinees we'd ever had. Yeah.
He was busy. He was busy. Cody did a really, really awesome
Yeah,
job.
once that was an option, people really responded.
It is absolutely. Now that we're talking about this computer-based piece of the exam, if they can pass that, then we've allowed them to relax, if you will, and say, okay, I've got these big pieces done. Now I know I still need to take the test for the state exam, but as we keep working on that, yeah, I think in the not so far future, 4 times a year or whenever, depending on what we decide to do, it can be simplified as well. But that's that last piece that you have to see, visually touch, and has a stumbling block. Until that last piece is met, it's still there's a reason for the stumbling block.
Cool.
It's the delay. That's perfectly okay.
Okay, here's another side to that. The PS exam being CBT through NCWS, NCWS effectively, they care but they don't, that there's 3 people takes it in October from the state of Tennessee.
Right.
There's 2 people in November, there's 1 in December,
Doesn't matter.
there's 25 in January. Effectively, they don't care. They do because of the dollar, but effectively they don't. Here's the difference. The TS exam for Tennessee, we care because we have a vendor that is going to administrate it, and the administration of that exam costs X amount of dollars in respect to our board's budget. So if we let's say it this way, if we routinely have somewhere between 15 and 30 people take it twice a year, and I think those are reasonable numbers, then if we divide that into 4 pieces, we may have between 10 and 15 take it 4 times a year. Well, now that's logical in my mind, okay? Because that helps the public get to licensure quicker. Instead of having to wait that 6-month window, they just have to wait usually a couple of months to window. So, but if our situation was where, we only had 2 people take it, every 2 or 3 months, I don't think it would be justifiable.
Correct.
So that's where I'm coming from with the scenario of the PS, TS, of pulling them apart because they're really no longer, they're the same, but they're not.
They're not, and they're not together. They don't have to live together
They
anymore.
don't have to live together anymore.
Right.
See,
No, I get you.
years ago, for what it's worth, years ago, this board would approve an application for an individual to go take their licensing exam. They would take the PS and the TS on Friday and take the FS on Saturday. And as soon as the results came in, they were licensed. It was 1 weekend and done, 16 hours and over. Slam, bam, thank you, ma'am. Okay? But since these exams have been restructured, recultured by NCWS to the modes that they are, and then moved into CBT and so forth, all of that's changed. And that change is tied directly into our statute about your roadmap of what you got to do to get to where. So I'm thinking that what we're talking about here will, again, go back to helping everybody, the applicant, the board, and the staff. And then I think that, we'll hopefully get a good nod from whoever, the director or whoever, that we're doing a good job to hopefully move our folks through, putting good professionals out in the public and so forth.
Absolutely.
And that's our goal.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So we will definitely, Cody and I, today when we leave, we won't start on it, but tomorrow we'll sit and look at breaking apart that application. Even if it's identical, it'll clearly start at the top. This is the Tennessee version of the exam, and this is, your professional. And so it'll be clear what stage they're in so that we can get the application. We need to break it up online. We'll do the same thing. They just pick the right category. Like I said, I don't worry about these folks picking the right category. They're going to know what they're ready to apply for.
Let me say one thing about that. I don't want to have the applicant have to fill out two applications, one for the PS and one for the TS. So I'd really like for the applicant to fill out the exam for the PS and have the ability to basically copy it or, put it in as the TS with the appropriate.
At a different time when they're ready, right, to
Yes,
use it.
Yes.
Right.
But again, trying to speed the process up just a little bit. And again, that's, Ms. Martin, that's why I wanted to talk about all these things, because they're all relative to that rule filing that we wanted to talk about. So you could hear it and, be a little better able to embrace it. So that as we start changing that, then we make changes that are a little bit more broad, so that as NCAAS changes, as the profession changes, et cetera, everything just flows, and we're not constantly having to modify our rules or our laws. Is what I'm hoping for.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll get off my soapbox. That's all I want to talk
No,
about.
it was a good soapbox. I got you. We covered it, which is great for the most part. We're going to come back, obviously, with Michael and Kimberly and just kind of touch on it. We're going to, I will make sure that you get emailed Mr. Messier's contract, so you've got it in your hand, can touch notes, ideas, questions. That way, our meeting on the 27th is also what it can be. And then, of course, there's a contract division in Commerce and Insurance, so they'll review it as well. So,
Gridwall?
it's now Stephanie Crenshaw?
I
She's
know
the
I
attorney.
dealt last time with Mr. Bridwell.
Yes.
I believe it was.
Yes. She'll make sure that it meets all the right specifications. We'll make sure to get language added. It won't be in this contract, but I may be able to get the language from other boards on the review process for the SMEs, is what they're called, that subject matter expert that has to come in and review all this. We will, it definitely will be in there, so that as we look at putting something out for open bid, then we know we're covering everything that the board does want to do, and looks good. That's great.
Thank you for your patience and listening to me on my little
Oh,
soapbox.
absolutely. That's what I'm here for.
Will you then send to us then, obviously, a copy of Mr. Messier's contract? Send us a copy of the paper application and a copy of the fillable.
I can't do the computer fillable because, as it says, it's on the computer, right? So I can't. You'd have to sit down and do it on the computer. But the paper's on the internet. I can print it.
Can I print it?
If you fill it on the computer, we'd get it. You could pretend to be a new licensee.
Could you send us the link?
Oh, yeah.
Because you
Oh,
said it was a
absolutely.
different link. It's not.
It's core. It's
It's not embedded in
core.tn.gov.
our website.
It is. Our website
it
at the
is?
bottom says if you want to renew or apply for a new license, click here. That takes you to
okay.
core.tn.gov.
Okay,
Videos on how to do it are on the right. And then, so you could pretend to be a licensee. We'd have to then delete the transaction and kind of apply, don't pay.
You might kick us out.
Yeah, don't pay at the end. But the paper version, we'll email you ahead of time. What I'll ask and see if at the next meeting or maybe whenever the following one is, if we can play with the online one. We have a test site that we're able to go into, and that's how we know, are there any errors, what's going to happen when the licensee clicks this, puts in a funny character, all those kind of things. It'd be time consuming. I don't know that you want to waste that kind of time. I think if we review the paper version, you'll know that the online mimics it. I mean, we've literally just put it electronically. That's all it is.
We tried one meeting to go through the frequently asked questions.
It's hard, isn't it? Yeah.
The frequently asked questions, and that turned into a disaster.
So we,
Yeah.
I think today with the kind of show and tell and being, it was a little bit easier because you're used to your applications. It wasn't a brand new from the start, so it was a good place to start. Whatever new applicants we have before month end, we're going to attempt them this way. So we are going to make sure to send you, you've got on your computers the link, but we're going to send you okay, here are the bullet points. You click and drag just in case you've got them by the 27th. And Cody and I are here to walk you through anything with those. But so I don't mind emailing the applications that are on the web as well, but they're always available for you on our website.
Anything further?
I'm gonna hush.
You're good with that?
I'm gonna hush. Everybody's tired of hearing me talk.
Okay. All right. I think that covers most, if not all, the items on our agenda for this afternoon. Of course, we moved the drone discussion to the 27th. Before we adjourn, there is, I just kind of want to open up to discussion and see if there's anything on anyone's mind. And I did have one point that was brought to me by a local surveyor down in the western part of Tennessee. And it's one that recently I thought had gotten much better. There for a while, a couple months back, it was quite a severe issue, and it has to deal with how current surveyors or prospective licensees can make contact to the board when they have a question or anything like that. Y'all have probably heard this before. You probably know exactly where I'm going. There had been a time, it's been months, if not a year back, to where I know there was a big transition in staff. There was a transition in how incoming phone calls were handled, to where on a regular basis, myself, Tim, I know you, Galen, probably so too, we're literally taking phone calls ourselves from surveyors or prospective surveyors, basically saying, who do we call? Because I can't get a hold of anybody now. And I think what was happening was they would call the number that was listed on the website. They'd go to basically a for lack of a better term, a phone service who tried to, as best they could, answer the question based on, probably a laminated sheet of some sort. If they ask this, then here's the question. Now, I think to some extent in the past we were spoiled with Donna always having been the person that when you called the phone, Donna was the one that answered it. That's just the way it was. I understand it's not there now anymore. But just recently, I'm starting to get those phone calls again. I haven't talked to you about it. If recently you have or not, Galen, I don't know. I don't know if you are or not, but.
I got an email even last night.
Okay, but just
About that very
and
thing.
just here in the last, I'm going to say it in my area, probably in the last just 3 weeks or so. I guess where I'm going with this, I'm going to ask has there been another change of some sort
Yes,
in
yes.
recent time that has?
There has.
Because it seemed like it had settled down.
Right.
But now,
So
okay,
I
I'll let
will.
you have the
I
floor.
will explain. And so it doesn't have anything to do with Donna leaving. This is actually part of the incentive, and it's a big picture, incentive on customer service. And with it, it still probably has some bumps to fix. And I've heard that in some of our other centralized programs. So none of the board offices, signature blocks, what have you, give out their direct extensions. The customer service team is one brand new team. They are cross-trained on all the boards, so some of what you said is true. They've got cheat sheets and policies, all the rules and laws for the different boards. They can only take on so much. They've done an extensive job of training. The focus is that they are going to handle all of the typical calls. So if the call is, how do I renew? What's your website? What's the address to the board? How do I file a complaint? That team is very well versed on how to handle the public, how to be really appropriate with the public, how to handle an upset caller, how to calm those things down, how to be across the board always the same and walk them through those things. The issue with that is if they're used to calling the direct extension probably to the board. And I think a few of the centralized programs they're lost out where there were so many numbers that some of the numbers really didn't connect to the big customer service. So we found 2 or 3 that was the case. I think we fixed that. But in that effort, when you've got a land surveyor with a very specific question, I think what I would tell them, and we talked about it at the presentation I did, this customer service team can handle probably 70% of the calls, give or take. If it's very specific, it is perfectly okay to say that someone would say, I really need an expert on this. I'm about to take an exam and really need to know what the statute tells me for land surveyors. Please put me to the expert. At that point, they would be able to, and they know that Cody's the expert, and put them through to him. They would know someone's very upset because something happened. Okay, Roxana happens to be the interim director. I'm going to put them through. But otherwise, it's this group of people that are answering the calls the best they can as we kind of finish the process. Each board office has also had to take on this phone system. So the phone system includes the earphones, it tracks, it records everything. So part of the good thing to it is it records. And on occasion you have the licensee that says, I was told to do this. The recording then tells us, no, you weren't. We've got it recorded. We really can't waive all that because you weren't. And then they back off. And that's not to say everyone would do that, but we get that. On complaints, it's important to hear it recorded because we then tell you, please file it in writing. We can't take it over the phone, et cetera. All those things. The emails are coming through the same system. So you've probably noticed TDC, I mean, just different ways of the email. And that's so that every email is responded to. The downside is it may take a little bit longer for some of those things. Always, anyone that calls, encourage them. If they have a very specific question that isn't your typical, then ask to speak to Dennis, myself, Cody, and they'll get us. They'll be put through. Now, the centralized boards have only 2 people that answer our calls all day. And they rotate. So we have someone that does the morning, someone does the afternoons, and that's just based on volume. So the customer service team really does pick up the vast majority of our calls, as they do for every other board. I think in time, it will keep working out the bugs. It's good to hear back from the licensees, even if it's bad. I really appreciate it, because then I can go back to the folks that work in the customer service side and say, we respect and know what you're doing, and it's a hard job, but we still are hearing that the calls aren't being picked up. The philosophy behind the customer service is no one's going to go to voicemail. We are going to pick up the caller. The downside to that on a busy day, and I'll, there are some professions that wait until the last minute to pay. So the first of the month, you're probably going to struggle getting through, because you have the bigger professions with 60,000 people. Even if only 10% or 5% wait till the last day, it's paralyzed us, So it's still being worked on, but that's why you've probably seen an increase. Now the customer service side has picked up since May. So from May, they've added additional boards every month or so.
I think that's good food for newsletter, Cody. It really is, to let folks know, because
Yeah, don't lose, patience. We haven't gone, and I've seen a couple of emails that go, where is everyone? Where is the staff for the board? They're not there. And we're here. You all just don't have the direct lines to call us. Like the website used to give all of our direct phone numbers. It doesn't anymore. I think in time this customer service thing will be much stronger, but until we get there, it can be frustrating.
That's why we really
The
started the board newsletter, was for things like this, new licensees, folks that pass away, variety of things, and our licensees really got used to it, and they've not been real happy about it. So that's why we need to keep that thing going, even if it's only once a year.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything further?
Do you want any PDHs?
Yeah, we certainly do have at the pleasure of the board, the option to review PDHs to the board members here for today's services. I guess we started roughly 9 o'clock. And being 2 o'clock there, that's roughly 5 hours minus 1 for lunch, 4 hours
Yep.
roughly.
Yep.
We looking, we have a motion?
Yep. Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second for 4 hours of PDHs. By voice vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Board of
Mr. Chairman, I would
4
like
PHRs.
to say that we'd like to welcome Miss Betsy, and I think she's going to be a valuable addition to us.
Thank you very
We're
much.
glad to have you and look
Happy to
forward to
be
working
here.
with you in the future.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
We'll see if
Thank
we
everyone
scared
for
her
a
off,
great meeting.
on the 27th.
See you on the 27th. Thank
Thank
you.
you
All
for
right.
letting us have this meeting.
This
We
meeting is
got a lot done.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much.